Welcome to the regular planning meeting of council this evening. I'll call the meeting to order a little late this evening, the time being, we'll call it 5:45. Item number 2 is the adoption of the agenda. Can I have the resolution read, please?
Be resolved that the agenda be adopted as
Sorry, can I have a mover?
First, yeah.
You're moving it?
All of it.
Okay. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Posthumous. For discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Item 10.11, dealing with the moratorium on development. We did receive a formal proposal from our legal counsel. And I feel it is unclear and it's not exactly what we intended to see what it describes. So rather than dealing with it at this meeting, I think we should postpone it, remove it from the agenda, and we can do this meeting, some subsequent meeting.
Okay, is council prepared to remove 10.11 from the agenda? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, did you want to reread? Did you need? She's going to reread the resolution.
be resolved that the agenda be amended as follows. Remove item 10.1.1 moratorium on development.
Move it again. We'll have a mover again. So Councillor Duval, Councillor Imhoff seconds it. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, item number 4, confirmation of the minutes from June 27th for resolution.
Be resolved that the council meeting minutes of the June 27th, 2023 planning meeting be approved.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Imhoff, seconded by Councillor Posthumous. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. We don't have any delegations this evening, although we have a nice room full of people, which is nice to see as well. So we'll move on to our public hearings. 6.1 conditional use, and we're also going to open the public hearing for variation order 64.
Be resolved that council open the public hearing of council for conditional use 19/2023 for 3850 Mowat Road.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horechko, seconded by Councillor Posthumous. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now open.
Be resolved that council open the public hearing of council for variation order 64/2023 for 3850 Mowat Road.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horechko, seconded by Councillor Duval. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now open as well. We've opened both public hearings because people have signed up in support and in opposition or for information for both of the public hearings. So if you come to the podium to speak, you can speak to both, which saves a bit of time because we do have a long list of individuals who wish to speak tonight. So is our applicant in the audience tonight and would like to present to, oh, sorry, I'm ahead of my game here. Pass it off to Mr. Planner to give us his report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is conditional use application CU 19/2023. The subject property is located at 3850 Mowat Road. The applicant wishes to continue the current specialized agriculture operation and wishes to allow the placement of an additional greenhouse in the rural residential zone. This is the conditional use request table. As you can see, the applicant wishes to continue the current operation and allow or intensify by adding another greenhouse. This is the location map. As you can see, the property gains access from Mowat Road. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. The applicant is proposing a 24 by 96 feet greenhouse. That's about 2304 square feet total, and an additional shop that is about 672 square feet. These are a couple of pictures that were clicked by regular planning enforcement. You can see the notices on the property from Mowat Road. As per the applicant, the farm business has been in operation since 1990s, when it was the permitted use as per the bylaw at the time. The specialized agriculture has been approved multiple times by the East St. Paul Council. Below are the applications, it was approved 4 times. Federal planning also notes that the property is designated as agriculture restricted pursuant to the development plan. The designation allows for small scale agriculture operations on smaller lots. Federal planning also notes that as per the rural residential zone, the owners are allowed to have 2 accessory structures of 2,200 square feet each. We did not receive any objections from the Provincial Department of Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development and the RMOF St. Paul administration. We did receive formal submissions and written objections from the neighboring property owners that have been added to the docket for council's consideration. If the council wishes to approve this application, we recommend 8 conditions. Moving on to the variance application, this is the variance on the same property. The applicant wishes to increase the number of detached accessory structures from required 2 to 4 and increase the size from the proposed structure from 2,200 square feet to 2,304 square feet. This is the variance request table. As you can see, the maximum number of accessory structures allowed is 2. The applicant is proposing 4 and increasing the size of the accessory structure from 2,200 square feet. This is again the site plan. There's 2 existing accessory structures on the property, a shop and an existing greenhouse, and the applicant wishes to add a new shed for storage and another greenhouse. Like I said before, the applicant is proposing to construct a shed and additional greenhouse. The property currently has 2 accessory structures, about 1,296 square feet storage building and 1,040 square feet greenhouse. The zoning bylaw only allows for 2 detached accessory structures up to 2,200 square feet per title. This approval is contingent on the approval of the conditional use application that I just presented, because that conditional use application allows the second greenhouse on the property. If the council wishes to approve this variance, we recommend 2 conditions that are reflected on the screen. Thank you. If the council has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Mr. Planner? Oh, Councilor Duval?
Yeah, Mr. Planner, can you show us the satellite picture of the site? Yeah. Is there any way your presentation can show where the proposed location would be of this new greenhouse?
Right, so it would be connected to, this is the existing greenhouse, the new one would go right here. And the new shed would go with the existing shed right here.
So that is the new one showing there.
This is the existing one, so they're gonna add, like, remove this and build a new one.
Just the greenhouse, the biggest.
Yeah, this is the greenhouse,
The existing one or the new one?
the new one.
New one, all
New
right.
one will go in there. The existing one is right here.
Thank you.
Okay, no further, oh, Councilor Postumus?
Yes, you're saying the one in the front behind the home there is a shop. Is that not where he has his processing and sells his vegetables?
I'm not aware of that information.
Because that's what he has pickups. I guess I can ask.
Yeah,
You can ask the applicant.
I'll ask them.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Duval?
Mr. Planner, you want this big lot, with this, the site width of this property?
neighbor. Oh, 155 feet.
On an angle 150, it's okay, it's probably 140 feet wide then.
Yeah, it's one plus.
Did you calculate what the total area of the buildings would be after this proposal is approved, new addition.
I did not know.
Yeah, which we have, but I did. I just wanted to make sure I be correct. But the proposed total area would be 5,312 square feet. Whereas currently it's 2,456. So to put that in perspective,
But they're allowed to have 2,200 square feet structures.
they're allowed to have
4,400 square.
Yeah. One's a little bigger, but the other one's a little smaller. Sometimes we don't take issue with that. But they're over the total.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant in the audience tonight and wish to speak to the application?
Good evening. My name is Tara Walker. I'm here on behalf of the Nations in their application. In terms of,
Tara, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. Did you sign into the sheet?
I did not.
So I'm going to need you to sign in. Yes, thank you. Will you be speaking to both?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, you can proceed.
Projects are making this application to help them improve the services that they're able to give to this community and to the rural municipality. The planning district, when I looked at all of the materials, it appears that this planning district has a strong support for agriculture and a strong support for community involvement. And that's really what a CSA, a community shared agricultural garden is. It's a support for the community. It provides resources to the community. It provides a service to the community. And it provides an intersection between that rural and urban dichotomy that it appears that this rural municipality is seeking. What they're asking is fairly minimal in terms of changes to the zoning bylaws. They're looking at a small increase in terms of the usage in the buildings and in the size of the buildings. It's something that could be fairly easily modified in the zoning bylaws. It's not a complicated situation. And what it would allow is for a multi-generational family to better use that land and be better stewards of that land by providing them opportunities to develop that community shared agriculture in a way where they may be able to extend the season, provide those services to your community over a longer period of time. And I expect that it will have minimal impact on the surrounding area and the land usage. If you look at the way that it's set up now in the original greenhouse, they're already cropping the land behind the original greenhouse, and they're proposing putting a greenhouse over top of existing plantings. Now that greenhouse is going to be a hoop structure. It will have minimal fans in terms and minimal use of fans. So it'll have very limited impact on any of the neighboring properties or on the atmosphere. In terms of how that structure will be controlled, is it's intended to have roll-up sides. So it'll have a natural flow of the breeze through it to cool it. And the fans will only need to be used in certain exigent circumstances, perhaps an extremely hot day in the spring where it's not viable to lift the sides. It will allow for them to continue planting, but without all of the complications that come with agriculture in our communities. Farming is a high risk profession in Manitoba and Saskatchewan in the West. Because you don't have control of the weather, you don't have control of pests, you don't have control of early frosts, late frosts, and it can significantly impact the ability to earn income and for the family to be supported. By having this greenhouse and the structure, it would allow them to crop for a few weeks extra, but additionally, it would allow them to reduce the risk of early frosts, late frosts. It would allow them to plant perhaps earlier, be able to provide larger crops to the community. It would allow them to farm in a different way, in an ecologically friendly way, in a way that's sustainable, which is what we're looking for, in a way that has minimal impact on the environment and the community. And it's a method of farming that will have almost zero waste. Here, we're not looking at bringing in, you know, an example, a huge plant or a processing plant or a pig barn or something like that that's going to have significant environmental impacts. In fact, the way that this CSA is managed is it's organic, it's run with basically a zero-till style of farming. There's no waste, it's all recycled, and it's providing a service to your community. When we look at whether approval of a second greenhouse is something that this committee could approve, some of the things that have to be considered is whether there would be minimal change to overcome the hardship. And here I'm suggesting that the hardship is the Manitoba weather and the growing season, that short growing season. And having a greenhouse that's slightly over size of what this zoning bylaw is really a minimal change that allows a family, a multi-generational family, to continue to reside and earn a living in your community. It also allows for minimal impact or no impact on the surrounding area. Greenhouse isn't something that's noisy. It's not something that affects people. You don't have, we're not asking, you know, for example, to put in a dog kennel where there may be barking all night, or some kind of a parking lot where there may be excessive noise from vehicles or semis parking overnight. This is a very ecological and appropriate use for a piece of land that's zoned agricultural. One of the other things that you are to look at according to your bylaws is that it's generally compatible with local use, and the property across, immediately adjacent to this property, is a full-scale farm that goes on for several acres. So I would suggest that there is, it's generally compatible with local use. If you look across the street, that's all cropped land for a number of acres. And so it would be generally compatible with that local area. There's farming directly across the street. This CFA has been in existence since the early 90s. It has been a significant contributing member of your community for many, many years. And there really are no detrimental health or general welfare effects to consider in this application. In terms of the application itself, there would be a minimal effect to people living or working in the area. One side effect allowing an expansion is potential more employment for the community and to provide more seasonal labor for members of your community, to bring other members into your community, and to increase access to other programming that your community offers. The Natics have been contributors to your farmers market and regulars there. They've been a founding member of that. They've been active and supportive in the community, and their actions in the community and their development have been consistent with the type of program that they're offering here. It's consistent with your own development plan in terms of fostering agriculture in the community. It's consistent with your development plan in terms of bringing people into the community to enjoy the rural municipality of East St. Paul. It also provides, and when we consider the essence of community shared agriculture, there is no community shared agriculture if the community doesn't support it. And so in all of the aspects that are to be considered when looking at conditional use and variances in terms of development, this type of application meets and ticks all of the boxes that this RM is advertising on your website, is advocating in your development plans. And we would suggest that, subject to any questions, that this is something that only benefits the rural municipality going forward.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant? Councillor Duval?
Yes, looking back, we can zoom in a little tighter on the location there. You know, as explained a few minutes ago, the location for the proposed new greenhouse is what is there. And if you can roll the picture up a little bit to see the neighboring property there. Thank you. That's getting kind of close to the neighbor. And this is some of the downfalls of these lot sizes. They may be over 5 acres, but it's only 140 feet wide. So they don't function as a 5 acre lot. They function as a 2 acre lot or a 1 acre lot, really, in the practical sense. However, my question is, could not that greenhouse be located alongside the existing one, rather end to end?
Yeah, the answer is no, because the green spot area just south of that greenhouse is a septic field. So I don't want to go with my septic field with the greenhouse.
When we're looking at the placement of that greenhouse, you have existing bylaws that define how far off a property line a building should be built. The greenhouse, the new greenhouse would be within your zoning bylaws for how far off of the property line that greenhouse should be built. And when we're talking about getting close to the neighbors, if you look at the tree line there, that's a barrier between the neighbor's property and the Natchuk's property. That barrier provides a screen in terms of the view, if that's what you're concerned about. It divides the properties. It provides the barrier that you're looking for. And there is nothing in your bylaws that prevent somebody from building within the range that they are able to build from their property line. So in terms of saying, well, maybe they should move it over into a different area. In this case, the area where you've suggested isn't feasible because of the septic field. I'm not sure that, I'm not sure what your concern is, Councillor Duval, in terms of the location of the greenhouse, whether it's that it's going to impact the neighbor's view, that it's going to,
Like I said at the beginning, it's getting close to the neighbor's property, neighbor's dwelling. Now, yes, there are side yard restrictions that this complies with. There's also other restrictions in the bylaw that are perhaps not quite as defined as that. And that is compatibility. And words like that. So we as a council have to consider that.
and I understand that. That's why I was asking what your specific concern was, so that perhaps we could address it more in a more fulsome manner. You can see where the house is as well. The house would still be set back a number of feet from the end of that greenhouse. So we're not talking about having the greenhouse specifically beside the house, you can see that there would be a number of feet from the end of the greenhouse to the neighbor's property, which would also provide, you know, a buffer zone if that's the concern.
It's one whole lot closer than the current greenhouse is.
It is, and we're not denying that.
Well, I'm not here to debate the point. I'm just pointing something out that I spot and I'm questioning. Okay.
Any further questions? Counselor Posthumous?
Yes, so in the drawing, we're adding another close to 700-foot shop. But the existing shop is actually, I believe that's the one we've passed before. That's its processing building where
That's
you're
correct.
doing washing, cleaning the vegetables and that. So is the second shop going to be the same thing? Another processing building? Or
No. So this shop that I'm proposing, like right now I have a shed. On the back of that shop.
yeah,
Mr. Knapchick, can you go to the microphone just in case someone can't hear you? Thank you.
Sorry. So currently we have that shop and on the back of the shop, there's a 10 by 20 shed. And then I have a 10 by 10 tent. So I'm proposing to take those down and put up a shed next to my shop. And then it's gonna be like a one of these canvas buildings where it's just for storage of equipment. There's no processing, there's nothing in there. I'm trying to keep some of my equipment that I bought out of the weather. I have a small tractor, I have some 3-point hitch implements that I like to keep undercover, and currently they're outside. And also they would be on the view of the neighbors. Right?
yeah, the reason I question, because your representative was stating that there would be hiring more people and there'd be more people hired, so the implications you're gonna be getting larger and doing more. And that's why I asked that question too. So with this growing in the greenhouse, the added greenhouse, you'd be growing exactly the same crops as before. And it's just to get in earlier in the ground or whatever.
We currently have crops growing where that proposed greenhouse is now. All we want to do is put plastic over that spot where we can control the weather. We can put a little heater in there. We can get crops 2 weeks earlier in the springtime and 2 weeks later in the fall time.
That's not an all around.
We're not adding any acres, we're not adding any more land, we're just putting a controlled environment over some of our property.
Okay, so your sales time that's stipulated would be the same as before. That day of a week and that season would be the same for selling.
What was that?
Your season that you're selling, your timeline would still be the same. You wouldn't be going into the winter.
No, it's for us, it's not feasible to heat a greenhouse when it's -30 outside. It would just be, say, beginning of April. You can start growing things in there and going till maybe, the first or second week of November.
And it's just a cover. It's not benches or anything like a regular.
We're just putting a hoop house over the ground and we're growing right in the ground.
Counselor Duval?
Yes, Mr. Planner, just curious, the property to the south. Not that, but is there two driveways for the same? I see the driveway coming in for 3850, and then it seems to make a U-turn and come out a different driveway. Is that a different property? Is that a different owner?
Yeah, so the property to the south is owned by someone else, but the two properties have an agreement that their driveways will match up so that when the pickups happen, they can just drive around and out. So no one has to back out onto Mowat.
Okay, and that's an agreement with the current owner.
Yeah, that's a private agreement between property owners.
Does that go with the property in case it sells? Or do we know that?
It's up to them if they have an easement agreement in place, I'm guessing not.
Now, the dividing line, the property line, is that fairly accurate? I think it is, the black line. So the applicant has, it looks like parking area there where there's some trucks and some equipment there. Just to the south of the green spot, which is the septic field, I would say, right there. Is that an optional location for another greenhouse?
Councillor Duval, I think that you posed the question of having it in a different location. However, if you're transferred to the other side of the property, then you're putting it along that property line. I don't know what makes the difference from one to the other. So I don't think that we should be discussing the location of it. We have a request for a location, which we will pass either, or we will deny this evening. I don't think that we should be discussing relocating it at this public hearing.
Very well.
Mr. Natchek, if I could ask you a question, or maybe even your son, because I know he's part of your organization as well. We had some questions in regards to concerns of consumption of water, running wells dry. So I'm just wondering if you could explain your process of farming on the lands.
So currently we have 0.75 acres of irrigable land. And we faced a complaint and an investigation 4 years ago about this exact issue. In fact, we faced multiple complaints and multiple investigations. And the governing bodies of water usage and conservation were satisfied about our water usage and our planning. We use a lot of mulch, and the water is very hard. It is not in our best interest to water plants with very hard water repeatedly due to a lot of rain. We've also increased our rainwater harvesting capacity to 2,500 gallons, and we intend to use that for the greenhouse.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Councillor Hurst.
The drainage after the washout of
Your mic's not on.
the drainage after the washout of the vegetables.
Yes, what about it?
So now that goes right into the soil, back into the soil.
We have again, we faced multiple complaints and multiple investigations about this issue, and our gray water from our processing goes to a naturalized creek whose function is to remove nutrients from water before it enters larger waterways. So conservation and sustainability both did not find any issues with the small amount, what it effectively a few hundred gallons a day, or if at maximum, is going into the natural creek directly behind our house.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're good.
Just one quick,
Oh, sorry, Councillor.
just so I'm 100% clear, you're talking about, what you're saying is there is no discernible increase in the amount of water that you're going to use, correct?
That's correct. If anything, we should use less wastewater or less water for cleaning out of the greenhouse, as the things that we grow there should be clean. Most of the time that we use water for washing, it's after a rain. Mud splashes on the lettuce and so forth, so we use it. It's a dry period. We've been really just kind of rinsing. There's not a lot of washing involved.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to those in support. And you're gonna have to be patient with me because I'm not sure I'm gonna get all these last names right or that I can read them this evening. So if I just say your first name or your last name or your address, you gotta help me out. So first on the list is Tessa Mostert at 38040 Mowat.
Madam Mayor and Councilors, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak in favor of the Natchez
I think that the turnout tonight is indicative of the fact that we do have a part of the community with a distinct momentum. And I think the matches add to that distinctiveness. We have had no issues with their CSA program. Our property does, we are the people who have the driver. We hope to age in the base there, so that an issue for everybody. All 4 of our children also worked for the Natrix, and we can assure you that they developed a very good work ethic. The issue with the traffic on there, we see no issue with it at all, and thankfully we have also a number of grandchildren, and they are also there occasionally on Thursdays, and also during the week. The Natrix are also going up and down the driveway. And they're always courteous, they're always careful, there's never been any issue. And we see no issues at all for this endeavor.
Great, thank you. Council, do we have any questions for? Okay, you can sit down. Okay, next we have Darlene Naturk. 3730 Mowat and Daniel. Okay, Daniel's gonna speak.
It's news to me. Yeah, we live at 3730 Mowat, just a few driveways down from Marty and Lori. I'll preface this by saying that he's my cousin, so we'll put that out there right now. I have no issues with the expansion of his property. We don't have any issues with traffic on Thursdays. We are part of his CSA program, so we partake of his vegetables throughout the year. And as I said, I have no issues with the proposed expansion. Again, the traffic is not an issue. I have more issues with just general traffic going up and down Mowat Road a little faster than what they should. But anybody that usually goes to the CSA program is very respectful. I think that the access with the neighbor's driveway is a wonderful solution to have. And I think the lady just spoke about that. I think everybody is very respectful. So I don't have any issue.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? No, okay, you can sit down. Sandra Utt, 35 Silver Fox Place.
I am a community member of the here in St. Paul. It's Silver Fox. I am a CSA member. I just want to say that I really appreciate the ability to get locally grown, organically grown vegetables right here in our community. I think that's just what we have to do for climate change is grow locally and get locally, and I'm really in support of this.
Thank you. I don't think any questions. Janet Bell, 3990 Mowat Road. And John Bell. Hi.
Janet and John Bell, 3990 Mowat Road. John was born and raised in East St. Paul, and 33 years ago decided to move back to the rural area for its large agricultural properties. 2 years ago, we built a 3,000 square foot shop on our property, which did require a variance and passed with no objections from any of our neighbors. The Natrix are a multi-generation farming operation and currently farm our land. We also belong to their CSA program. Every week we drive through their property and don't see any issues with another greenhouse is for back on their property.
Great, thank you. Council, any questions? No, okay. Oh, this is Graham Natchuk. No, you've already spoke. Great. Okay. Katri Coco.
Yes.
I'm not sure of the address.
I live permanently. Helping Cape Cod and generously housed me during the summer for his partner, and I'll have to tell that the plan that they have with the new greenhouse will support the whole community in a wonderful and beautiful way. So I support them.
Great, thank you. Carol Natchuk. Sorry, oh, you have a question?
What's the question, the address of that last?
So, I actually can't pronounce the address.
Oh, the address, I'm sorry.
I can't pronounce her address. But I think she's being housed by them currently. So her address would be 3850 Mowat Road.
Thank you.
Okay. Carl Natchuk. I said Carol, sorry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Councilors. I'm an employee of Natchez Gardens. I'm also Graham's cousin. And I do not live in East St. Paul, but I have a vested interest in the ongoing success of Natchez Gardens. And I've been, this is my fourth year there, and I'm just first off in support and what they're doing, working in the garden and seeing all of the progressive processes and practices of no-till farming and that they are trying to develop. I can see the benefits of a greenhouse, and I know this is the best step forward. And it's been a long time coming. So,
Thank you. Katie Harmer. She had to leave, okay. Terry and Donna Ludwig.
Madam Mayor, Councilors, thank you very much. I'll try to stick basically to facts. My family has been part of East St. Paul, having roads since the 1940s. I currently use 3900 Mowat Road, having lived in East St. Paul all my life. Henderson Highway, Mowat Road, Owen Etc. Market Gardens have been part of the communities for as long as I can remember. There go Pritchard Farm Road, Rager Farm Road. I think that sort of speaks for itself. Not-for-profit operation. It's not a corporation. It's not McCain's Foods. They have a nice small operation, serves the community very well. Provides produce pickup. It's not a public place. You can't go and pick your own strawberries or pick your own. So it's not that kind of environment. It's efficient. It's quiet. Of course, public's allowed limited one day away. I've always found them to be a very respectful operation. Where we live, it's very close. There's lots of farming going on around, and as far as their operation was concerned, it's probably the quietest of all of them. The benefits you've heard, it's local, it's all East St. Paul. But we spoke about market gardening being restored, but this is the reason I believe it should be supported by council, and is that it's productive, not historic necessarily. I can tell you again from living in a couple of doors down here that an unintended benefit, I think, is that I actually feel in quite a number of ways that it makes the community safer. There's people outside, there's people in the community. If anybody is coming into that area to try to do any type of criminal activity, they're quickly probably dissuaded because there is activity going at least in the summer months. The other unintended benefit, I think, it keeps the land alive. If you're familiar with this area, at one time it was all market gardening between the tracks and Mowat Road, all the way maybe to the 3500 block. It's all kind of dead property. It's just gone to seed and bush, and at least with this farm, there's some productive activity going on. So just in closing, the east side of Mowat was outlined by the applicant. It's full of farms. It's constantly under tillage and producing crops of all kinds. I'd ask council to support the application, not because of history, but because it adds a productive and needed service, and which remains in part of the namesake of the community, which is the rural municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Brian Watchko.
Just want to thank council for allowing me to speak and provide support for both submissions of 3850 Mowat Road, the additional greenhouse and the shed/shop addition. My name is Brian Watchko. I'm a neighbor, I'm a CSA member, and I'm also a member of the St. Paul Fire Department. I live on Mowat Avenue and I'm surrounded by large scale farming. I was aware when my wife and I purchased our property that we were joining an area of food producers. We were thrilled and welcomed the opportunity to join the local CSA. Community supported agriculture is a production and marketing model where consumers buy shares of farm harvest in advance. Consumers become CSA members by paying an agreed amount at the beginning of the growing season. This is going to be important as I get into this. Food producers work long hours throughout the growing season and off season. I'm very respectful to give my local farmer a wave every time I see them working in the field. I'm also happy to be respectful and accommodating when they're working hard to secure crops based on changing weather conditions. I have no issues closing my windows during spraying or late night harvest. It's all part of living in a farming community. A few points to consider when council is making their decision. Even though the application calls for 2 additional structures, one could also view them as additions/extensions to 2 existing structures. And I think Councillor Duvall started alluding to it in calculations that the existing shop is 1296 square feet. The additional shed attached to it would be another 672 square feet. We would bring that structure to 1968, and that would still be under the 1 structure limit. The greenhouses is where it actually exceeds. You have a current greenhouse of about 1,040 square feet. We're adding another greenhouse addition of 23.4 square feet, which brings you at 3344 square feet. So that would exceed the current structure. So that would be looking for a variance on that 1 additional structure, which we also heard that it's not really a true structure. We're actually using the existing land and adding a structure to extend the growing season. So that's just something to consider when you're making a decision. A few other things: climate change, geopolitical conflicts, supply chain issues, high inflation, lack of competition within the grocery market have impacted food prices. Natural gardening literally feeds the St. Paul residents. They're not global exporters. Their operation speaks to the root of the community when there were many local growers and sellers in the past. They use sustainable, ecological food production measures, which we hope become the norm and model for other food producers around the world. Greenhouses allow early germination of plants. They extend the growing season and help stabilize to secure food production, all while using less water compared to open air growing. And I think we did hear about that, the water consumption would actually decrease with this greenhouse. This is especially important as weather cycles are changing and becoming impacted year to year. One only has to look at the current weather in southern states in Europe to see the impact on food production. We see growth and changes in the residential sector within the community. Growth and changes within food production sector are needed to keep pace with our growing community. Back in October, the government commissioned a market study on competition in Canada's grocery sector. June 27th of 2023, they released a 54-page report, which is available online. I have it, I won't be reading it, but I just pulled out a few points, but it is available for all council members to look at it in greater depth. But I went through and I pulled out a few key points. Some of the key findings of this recent report: Canada needs more grocery competition. Lack of competition within grocery landscape is creating high consumer prices. Without government support, we should not expect independent grocers to significantly expand in Canada in the near future. Canada needs a grocery innovation strategy aimed at supporting the emergence of new types of grocery businesses and expanding consumer choice. Provincial and territorial governments should take measures to limit property control in the grocery industry, which could include banning their use. Property controls limit how real estate can be used by competing grocers. That was on page 2 of a 54-page report. That they encourage provinces and municipal governments to look at zonings to allow and limit reduced restrictions that are placed on food producers. On a side note, there are many large equipment sheds throughout the community on Mowat, Bowen, and Redneck Road, many of which are visible from the roadway. These structures do not detract from the community. They provide a clean, secure, and safe area to store farming equipment. Marty and Lori don't advertise their philanthropy. They have used their CSA network and have hosted a charity dinner in 2020 for the Molly Children's Family, which is committed to supporting the rescue and rehabilitation program of children in Kenya, Africa. It was chosen by Abner Lori, a 63-year-old ultra marathon cyclist. He broke the world record for the most kilometers cycled in 1 month. He's in the order of Manitoba. That was done in our community. In closing, Marty and Lori's submission does not detract from the curb appeal or the value of any properties within the St. Paul community. I would be proud to have them as my next door neighbor, both through who they are and what they do for our community. Please grant them the opinions for their requests.
Thank you. Okay, I might need help with this one. Ray Nedho? Neto? Okay.
My name is Ray Nettleton.
Okay, so I missed a bit of that.
My family owns and operates Nettleton Gardens at 3983 Henderson Highway. Thanks for letting me speak. I'll be short, just to feel what we say. So of course I'm here to support. I'm always going to support any type of local agriculture. It's always good for the community. So in 2016, I stood seeking a very similar application. When Councilor Eschel was at that meeting at the time, and I apologize. Others were there, but we applied for a conditional use permit, as well as several greenhouses and a store property, in addition to our residence in my already existing 1,500 square foot shop. That was the time we decided we wanted to do a farming business. So at that time, we applied for a zoning variance for the square footage. We went from 1,500 square foot garage at a time. And keep in mind, we're only zone RR2, so our square footage from our buildings is different than the RR5. Ours was a lot less allowance there. At the time, I think it was only 900 square feet, but I already had a 1,500 square foot variance for the one shop. So I applied for 3 greenhouses, my store, and my existing garage together. So that's 5 accessory buildings. The total square footage of all my accessory buildings together ended up being 4,500 square feet. It was unanimously approved. We are located on Henderson Highway in a far denser populated area. There's way more houses right around us, both sides of the highway. We've been in operation for, so we are going into our 8th year, and we have had absolutely 0 complaints, 0 issues. There's been no problems with these buildings being there. None of the neighbors have ever raised any issues. At the time, the only issue of concern was parking on the highway. We didn't want cars parking on the highway, which is one of our conditions to provide parking on our property, which we do, and absolutely. Our greenhouses and our store are also very visible from the roadway. You drive by our place, you can clearly see all our buildings. There's no hiding our buildings. These are way out of view from the street. You drive by Martin and Lori's house, you can only see their house. You can't see anything. There's no issue for a field. So I just wanted to say that as an example, and precedence was kind of set there. There's been 0 complaints, 0 issues. We're very successful in the farming. Our farming season is extended well past any frost because of the greenhouses. Our water usage is far less in the greenhouses. We have beds, they come to farm on existing ground. We have beds in our greenhouse, and they're filled with mulch. We water every 2 or 3 days in those greenhouses, and it's just spot watering. And the mulch helps hold the moisture in a lot better. So there's a lot of benefits to be able to farm in the greenhouse. And realistically, with our weather patterns, it's going to become more common. We're going to have to, you got to be able to control the environment. Summers are either extremely wet or extremely hot and dry, or we had an unreal. The temperatures were unbelievable in June, like 30, like weeks of 30s, temperatures over 30 degrees. And farming that is not ideal outside, but inside you control that environment. It makes you, makes a successful farmer. So that's.
Thank you. Martin Knapchuk, already spoke. Rob Patterson. Oh, sorry, missing.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lorraine Patterson.
Okay, so did you sign in, Lorraine?
I did.
Where do I have you then? I have Rob. Nope, I'll just sign you in for you.
I did sign in.
And how do you spell your first name?
Or E-E-N.
Okay.
We've been CFA members for a few years now, and there's really not much I can add. Everyone has covered pretty much everything. It would be public work. Any additions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next last name, I can't really see it, but the address, the first name is Rob and the address is 455 Glenway. You're just in support?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, and then the next two signatures I can't really read either. The addresses are 1010 Highland Park. Pardon me?
On the wrong one.
Signed in or signing in just to get in, but we're not.
Oh, okay, so I'll remove you then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you supposed to be signed into another sheet? Okay, do you want to?
Apparently I am.
Okay, Michelle, do you want to help him out? Okay, and then Lori Knapchuk is for in support. Okay, and Jerry, I want to say Coob or Cub from 480 Bowen. Yes, just in support. Thank you. And then Debbie, I'm not certain how to pronounce your last name, 224 Devon Avenue.
It's Debbie Berlinski.
Okay.
I'm here to lend my support. I've been a member of the community off and on over the last 25 years. So I've also been. And over the last 25 years, there have been a number of market gardens in East St. Paul, which service the wider community of East St. Paul as well as North Carolina. And we've seen a decline in the number of market gardens over the last 20 years. And so we heard today that we now have 2 market gardens left which service the community. And in the challenging environments when it comes to weather and inflation affecting food costs, as well as food availability and production, I think it's critically important that we support our market gardens to become the centerpieces of the community as the outcomes have, as well as they provide employment to the community, which is rare. And having lived in other parts of Canada, we don't have market gardens in small communities in places like that. You don't see them in Saskatchewan, you don't see them absolutely in Alberta. So we have something unique here that can be a marketing point and an example for the communities. So in closing, I strongly recommend that. It's a semi-permanent structure that they're adding on to the greenhouse. It's not as though they're building a permanent structure. It's a house and it's growing crops in the it extends the growing season, which we need for increased food production. And it's organic. They're not spraying chemicals. That's waiting on adjacent properties. 100%.
Thank you. Andrew Creighton, 224 Devon Avenue. In support, thank you. Grant McMahon, maybe 2560 Mowat Road.
Right, that can 3560.
Okay, thank you. How do you spell that? So I just can write it in here.
CHAN.
Thank you.
So my wife and I, Deborah Oak, she's also on the list. Everything else that was said before we come here has been said, same thoughts as us and some. So for sake of brevity, we have anything more to add. We're in support strongly and we will. So.
Great, thank you, Grant. Okay, so I see what's happened here because we have both public hearings before me. I have two different sheets. So Lorraine, you were signed in. I just didn't read from that sheet yet. Apologize for that. So if I could just take a minute, I'm just going to go down the list to check off to make sure I'm not calling somebody twice. And then we'll move to in opposition. Unless somebody wants to speak twice, because they can do that as well. We don't mind. Darlene and Daryl Natcha. Pardon me? They already were called? Okay. I call Matthew Vanderberg. Not here. Okay, I think we've covered everybody in support. Sorry, did I not call your names? What is your name, sir?
Ed Wall.
Ed Wall.
991.
Yeah, I'm gonna sign you in because maybe you signed a different sheet that I don't have. So in support, is it WALL or W? And your address?
991 Mowat. We have to support our farmers.
Thank you. And the other gentleman that I didn't, I'll get to you in a second.
I signed the wrong form, so I'm an idiot.
Don't say that.
3866 Rebeck Road. I own the property directly across.
Do you want to come to the mic and speak to the application? And just, if you could tell me your name.
I was keeping those secret.
Oh.
My name is Ken Osborne.
Okay.
My wife and I moved here 4 years ago. I have 33 acres that backs onto the greenhouse here. 27 of that is farmed, as you can see, it was mentioned before. The farming that goes on my property doesn't go to the community, it goes off to somewhere else, and it gets dispersed in co-op or whatever. Having something local is an awesome thing. To add a little structure to it, over the ground that he's already working on, I don't see the headache to us. 27 acres of my land that's farmed, nobody gets anything from, so I'm in support of this little greenhouse. Doesn't take up much space.
Okay, thank you. And the lady at the back, would you like to come up and speak?
Madam Mayor and councilors, my name is Julie Doyen, I send the worksheet. And it's important.
How do you spell your last name?
O-N,
Thank you. And your address?
3991 Mowat. And I'm new to the community, which I'm very proud of, and wish to continue to reside here. I am in support of our farmers. I think it's a great thing. I'm in 4th generation here in Manitoba. I have children and grandchildren, and this is a really good thing for them to learn the way the world is going and how we have to produce our own. It's wonderful for them to grow up in the community. Thanks so much.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, is there anybody else that didn't sign in or maybe signed the wrong sheet that wanted to speak in support? Okay, I will move now to in opposition. And I will start with Dan Mulder.
Madam Mayor and councilors. I'd like to start out by sharing the concerns. First, did not receive conditional use of zone variance noise system.
Can you talk closer to the mic?
Better? Yeah. Did not receive the variance notices in the mail. In the email that I attached, Jacqueline then followed him at Red River Planning District, confirmed our address is on the notice. I'm a little disappointed about that. Second concern is that the applicant inappropriately placed a dishwasher in the front yard that increased the visibility of seeing these voices. This concern was shared by email with Red River Planning District. That dishwasher stayed open front, which distracts you from having people driving by being able to see those notices. When I reviewed the visual use file number 19/2023, I was baffled that not one person from Agriculture and Resource Development, RM of East St. Paul Administration, Director of Infrastructure, or Public Works Manager completed any due diligence to discover there was any concerns with supporting this application. This was very disappointing, as they would have been able to apply legitimate concerns that should have been included in this conditional use file. I think my perspective, because there's no due diligence, you're not getting the whole picture. For example, I was contacted, I could have shared that my property is directly impacted as my neighbor at 3840 Mowat Road allows the applicants to use their private driveway and Thursday pickups take place. If this is not a private driveway, but a shared driveway as communicated in previous public hearings, then it is my belief that the appropriate legal documentation confirming that should be part of the conditional use file. It's one thing to say we got a gentleman's agreement, this and that, but I'm immediately being impacted. Nobody contacted me to ask me my opinion on any due diligence.
Mr. Mulder, I'll just let you know that we don't contact residents for due diligence. We allow you to come forward at the public hearing. Our staff does do due diligence throughout the process of applications.
So by due diligence, would they look up any old files on the existing?
Unfortunately, I'll let you present, but not ask questions.
Regardless of being a private or shared driveway, my immediate neighbor located at 3840 Mowat Road has a large amount of traffic that directly impacts me. The applicant's customers' vehicles enter their property on their private driveway, pick up their produce at their stand, then drive across their backyard to our neighbors directly by us at 3840 Mowat Road and exit off their driveway. During the growing season, at times, there's been approximately 50 vehicles that do a pickup on Thursday as part of the community shared agricultural business. We are directly affected and have been completely disregarded and disrespected. By approving an additional greenhouse that is 2.2 times larger than existing greenhouse on the property, potentially would triple the number of vehicles picking up produce every Thursday. The applicant's conditional use letter of intent states, I quote, "Our intent is to operate a market gardening business as we are currently operating. growing transplants in our greenhouse, planting and harvesting crops in our field with the help of hired employees. Continue our CSA, community supported agriculture, pick up every week on our farm through the summer, being a proud vendor of our local St. Paul farmers. It's clear to me that the intent is to continue to grow community support agriculture business, which means more vehicles. How would any of you like to have up to 150 vehicles driving in the road if your neighbor's driving? Built St. Paul in an R5 zoning area. The understanding of the zoning regulation prior to 216 is that one attached accessory building to a maximum of 2,200 feet could be built in this zone. Red River Planning District had a different interpretation, but now allows for a maximum of 2 accessory structures in R5 to a maximum of 2,200 square feet for each structure. Now the applicant is wanting to have a total of 4 detached structures, is asking for one of the structures to be 2,304 square feet size. Beyond understanding why the council would ever approve such a request. I fear that additional greenhouse cosmetically would be unappealing, would be louder due to a fan running, eventually could increase traffic substantially that impacts my property directly. I now have one adjacent neighbor running a septic business, and the other neighbor allowing 50+ cars to use their driveway. I didn't buy and build an R5 zone to be surrounded by retail business and industrial business on either side of my property. Enough is enough. This isn't about warm and fuzzy testimonials of the character of a person, or that the applicant's property was designated as an A1 agriculture district back in 1990. This is about administrating the R5 zoning regulations as intended. Council should not approve this conditional use application. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you, Council. Do you have any questions for the presenter? I'm just curious of the body of water behind your property. Is that a body of water, the black circle?
That was 2 of them. Neighbor directly beside the swimmings.
And what is the purpose of the body of water?
Decorative.
They're decorative ponds that. So do you have an agreement that your pond encroaches over onto the neighboring property?
Built it together with them.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Stuart Atwood.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I will be brief. I'm not nearly as eloquent as Mr. Mulder was. I live at 3790 Mowat with my wife. We've been there for about 10 years. I basically think most of what the applicant is asking for is covered in current regulation. I don't understand why he needs 4 buildings if he only wants to have 1 more. So I think we should follow the wisdom of previous councils and who have set a reasonable limit on the size and number of structures. The neighborhood is changing. Market gardening is part of the history, as was the gravel business. Things change. It is now a more residential neighborhood, as demonstrated by the land that for sale, the farmland immediately across is for sale. The land that's just further down is for sale. Those farmers have very little impact on our lifestyle. You see them in spring and fall, maybe once or twice for spring. Mr. Knapczyk's operation, I hear tractor running till 11 o'clock at night, which is fine. It's the bylaw. I hear fans running. I have all the traffic coming on Mowat Road that goes past my house. So it does have an impact on my lifestyle, but I'm tolerant of that to help the farmers and small business get going. Let's not be fooled here. This is not a small little family operation. This is a large business. There is multiple acres under tillage, including the neighbor's property. Sorry, just lost track here. It's not small. Many acres are under cultivation, including the neighbor's properties. He already has large buildings and greenhouses, 8 employees, and I would venture to guess that one of the larger businesses in the state. I think we need to understand what's being asked for. And if the current legislation allows him to do what he needs to do, why ask for 4 more buildings if 2 are sufficient? And if we're opening up zoning, perhaps it's a good time as Council Development a percentage of the land that can be covered by buildings. Perhaps some kind of, yes, you can grow your business to a point, but when you become a commercial entity, then this is not the St. Paul that we moved to. My thoughts are that this should not be approved for those points.
Thank you.
Okay, just a second, I just want to ask you. So your property is 6 doors down from the Natchez farm?
Right.
And you can hear their fans running? Okay,
My quiet evening, no problem at all, and if not the tractor.
okay, thank you. Okay. Next is Steve Kunka. I don't think that looks like Steve.
I am not. My name is Jen Hansen. I am legal representative for the Comcast.
So they will not be speaking tonight?
No, they asked for me to speak on their behalf.
Okay, I'm just gonna cross them off here. And yourself. Okay, and I understand your legal representation. I have been timing everybody and everybody has 10 minutes. So I'm gonna time as well, just to give you a heads up.
You got the time, I believe you received our materials that we filed.
Yes, we did. We got them when we arrived this evening.
So I will quickly go over it. Thank you, Council Madam Chair, for having us. I would like to, if I can give it to Madam Clerk, it's just a list of 15 names who are in opposition, along with the opposition letters, who are all residents on Mowat Drive. I can give it to Mr. Planner, just so that Council had a list of the 15. The list in here that one. Letters of opposition as he has without. I will continue to proceed if it pleases council. Jen has the partner in TVS. And with municipal law. In our submission, the company has asked, it's a fairly detailed submission. And I want to make it very clear, I don't think we're, and speak everyone, not against market gardens. That's it's purely of this market garden. The current use as is acceptable. There is a development agreement on the land. That's not the question here. I will head straight into our materials. I will read verbatim what was provided. But we're asking that it be for 2 different reasons. The application would exceed the number of permitted accessory buildings that are allowed under the zoning bylaw. That the application would exceed the definition of especially for agriculture and larger commercial use. And that the applications do not conform with the criteria prescribed at section 106 of the Planning Act with respect to the expansion. Additionally, at the last, I will go over it in the alternative. We are proposing the council does choose to pass the conditional use and variance that certain conditions be added by way of in a development agreement or revised or amended development agreement. Very quickly, as was stated, there's a 2 accessory building maximum as per your zoning bylaw. We're asking that be respected. And that means the compatible farming operations in this country type setting. So it's an RR5 where we agree that residential and small farms, market gardens need to coexist. Here, as you'll see at section 27.6/3, it is the maximum of 2. And then these 2 buildings, as is described, clearly exceed the permitted square footage. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sunkids who are directly abutting the property, so they do feel that they are directly impacted. The exceeding definition of a specialist agriculture. We agree that the RR5 is a market garden. As stated in the material, there are other lands being farmed and then being brought, either processed or sold on the land. So this increases the number of, I'm going to call it the use. And by adding these, what we feel is the greenhouse and additional shed is going to expand the use. It's, as stated by the applicants, it's going to be an intensification of the use, no longer 2 accessory buildings but 4. And just to speak on the other side, this is not just an addition, it is 2 new structures and structures pursuant to any form of committees of structures, dirt, a pile of dirt as per common law definitions. So no matter if it's just a greenhouse, it is still a structure. I will not get into full details of the what needs to be approved under 106. I feel that council is very aware of what it is, but maybe for everyone in the gallery, that the three conditional use criteria are consistent with the general surrounding area, not detrimental to health, welfare, or negatively affect other properties, and is generally consistent. We feel that this intensification means none of those, that it is not consistent with the general, and it does not meet zoning bylaw. It is detrimental to the health, welfare, and negatively impacts the neighbors, as we have 15 opposition letters from Mowat Road. And equally, it's not currently consistent with your current zoning and development plan. Specifically, the issues that the Comcast have are drainage. You will see in the materials that we have added pictures to the end. Typically, when new buildings are added pursuant to any form of building permit, there is some form of drainage requested. Due to the close proximity, and as you can tell from the photos that we have provided, it is directly abutting with tarps on the Suncoast land. They are worried about drainage, the natural flow. If swales will be needed, will these new buildings treat any alternate damage? They have a tree line there as well. So is the tarps, are they affecting their tree line? Will they die off? Questions that we would like answered by way of the drainage plan. We've gone over as well water. I appreciate that there have been, when I say provincial employees have come out to look at the land. Currently, it is our understanding that there are 2 wells on the property, and so there is, I feel, of any use, any rightful neighbor would be concerned about their well water being impacted. Also, it is proposed placement of the building as well. That was touched upon. As you can tell by the description on the map, the companies their house is further back, and that was a requirement at the time of building due to drainage and the creek in the back and the high levels of the property. So that is also important in these circumstances. So I will not get into the any further of my, I think I'm hopefully within time, Madam Chair.
You are.
That we're that this is not compatible, that this is an intensification, it's an expansion that doesn't go with the area. We do respect that it's a market garden. They are there, they're welcome, and no one's disputing that. It's just the actual intensification on the property at this time. They as have additional noise, they can attest to that. There is a fan currently in the greenhouse. They can hear it from their property. So while this is maybe a plastic structure, there will be a fan which will create additional noise from the location of the property. If it pleases council, I would just quickly go into in the event that you choose to pass the conditional use variance. We ask that the current conditions be added to an amended or revised or a new development agreement. That the navigates shall be limited to on-site pickups by customers for their market gardens at 1 day per week. At the 1 day per week, be limited to 50 cars. Any additional pickups would have to be at a separate off-site location to ensure the rural nature of the area or a different garden. That the navigates must ensure that any customers do not block or impede access to the Comcast property or Mowat Road. As you'll see in the pictures, there are actual people stopping on Mowat to attend into the property. That they ensure that all parking and pickups for market gardens be managed on the site. And there's no stopping or idling. That they obtain an on-site and off-site drainage plan by a qualified engineer and ensure that any drainage and runoff is in compliance with all municipal bylaws and standards. That they be required to comply with any drainage plan that is prepared pursuant to the provincial and licensing if needed. That they be required to complete all trenching and burn works on the property no later than the end of September of this year. As you will note from the pictures, there are tarps and berms that have been dug. There is standing water on the property currently as is, and the Comcast are worried that this will continue on. It is creating a nuisance for them. That they will be responsible for all costs associated with the replacement of the Comcast existing tree line along the south side of their property, which may be destroyed if the tarps are removed or if there's infiltration onto the land. That they be required to adhere to all municipal standards and provincial statutes and regulations. That they engage and cover all costs associated with a well and water testing. If the well water is deemed to be in such a fine state, then annual maintenance testing, especially if it comes to property in proximity, is a reasonable ask. And specifically as well, that they ensure that any fans, generators, lighting, other electronics, or other deemed nuisance related with respect to the structures that may not face a light or be close proximity to the dwelling. So with that, if there are any questions of council, would be happy to answer them.
I have a couple of questions, if you just give me a moment.
Of course.
If any other counselor would like to ask a question, go ahead, Councillor Postumus.
Yeah, you had mentioned the fans running, are they 24, like, during the night also, or is it under the bylaw that at 11 o'clock these fans on?
So before you answer that, Councillor Postumus, I think that's a question for the applicant, because the lawyer before us wouldn't know their operating hours of.
Okay, well, I can ask that the applicant, but that was one of the complaints that the fans run, so I thought maybe the homeowner.
I do think that
run
the applicant
night,
answer that.
just during the day.
So my understanding is they run an intermittent hours. It's on and on.
Sometimes they run all night.
Okay, so Councillor Hretchko.
So where I live, we have a swale. And both residents get involved in the swale, not just one. So
It could be. I believe my, as long as the drainage, it meets, the new standards of drainage and swales, that we'd be open to those discussions as to, but at this time, we don't know, as you can tell by the pictures.
and then testing water. I mean, if you have a well, I think common sense says you should probably test it, I don't know, once, twice a year. Doesn't cost a lot of money.
And if there, I guess I'm not going to debate with council, it's just
Okay, yeah.
for council. I respectfully say that, yeah, they are concerned with their water. And so if there were an issue, the question is, what would happen and who would be liable?
Okay, so my first question is the tree line. Were the trees planted by the Kokas? Is it on their property?
Yes.
So all the trees along that line are on their property. I assume that there is a swale in there, but I'm wondering if you're asking for any larger swale that it would affect that tree line.
The question right now is that we just don't, when I say don't know, as you can see by the drawings or like the pictures we submitted, those tarps right to the edge of the, like.
When were the pictures taken of the parts?
In the last week.
In the last week? Okay. And so the standing water, I assume, is from the rainfall that we potentially had. I don't think that they have standing water there all the time. So can you add?
I can speak to that just from.
Yeah, so just the concern with
it has been standing that there are, if there's a reddish color to, I'm gonna call it the puddles or the lingering water, they feel that there's mosquitoes and bugs. They also feel that it is a plastic cover and it's not breathable. So it's not a mesh that would allow proper drainage, as you do see in certain tree lines. Shelter belts and all that, there is a special knot mesh which permits knotweeds to come through, but also allows arable land. This is a plastic tarp, which might have.
Okay, the applicant will come back up and we can ask them about the tarp at that time. My next question is, so the concern is potential concern of mosquitoes. I see these large ponds in neighboring properties, which really concerns me about mosquitoes, but is it that they have a concern with mosquitoes right now?
They do, and we were asked to make our submission with respect to the application to the conditional use of areas. Neighboring properties.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out.
But they are, yes, they are concerned with the standing water, what they feel is a tinge of water on top of the tarps.
Yeah, because the tarps aren't covered in water, there's just spots of water.
If he's the
So I'm gonna deal with the individual that's standing before us first, and we'll have the audience if they want to speak. They can speak after we ask our questions. Council, do we have any further questions for their legal representation?
Right now.
No questions? Okay, no more? Okay, thank you. Oh, Mr. Planner, you have a question?
Oh, just a quick comment on the drainage. So these all will be addressed when they actually obtain a building permit. And that will be a part of the mandatory building code, not to impede drainage on the neighboring properties. Everything will be addressed at that stage.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'll go back to those in opposition. Now, I noticed that Steve and Janet wanted to say something, or is it that you want to speak to the application now? I have to have you come to the podium.
Clarify a couple questions that were answered.
Sure.
So in terms of the tree line, majority of those trees have been there between 15 to 20 years. There are 6 maple trees that are towards the back of the property, where primarily that trenched area was. Some of that area has been trenched 50 feet since last year. And is now aligned with those parks. So when of those 6 maple trees, those were originally planted before there was a delineation of exactly where the property line was. So Mr. Natchez fence is set back 1 foot from the actual line of the property line. So those 6 maple trees are the only ones that are technically on his property.
Okay. Is there a fence on the property? I don't see.
Yeah, he's got like a deer fence or something.
Oh, okay,
Wire fence.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other question.
Probably about the fans. That was a question about fans.
The fence wrap.
Yeah, because I guess being a greenhouse, I'm not a farmer, but it's controlling temperature, right? Like, so that's something that's always on, because it's always controlling whatever the internal temperature is, so.
How far is your house set back from your property, shared property line? You may.
Hi, Steve, got there. Okay, it's about 25 feet from the property line, 30 feet roughly. The tarp thing, the reason we're not saying there's a swale, you guys gave us the grade when we built our house. We set the grade, it passed your grade exam. Now, if you look at those pictures, there's a berm that's been there since July of last year, holding water back on his property, and a trench that's been there for a year. Those tarps all along the bottom, it's not from the rain or the sprinklers. You can see by the red algae that it's actually been there a long time, or whatever that stuff is. There has been more mosquitoes because of that. In the trench where the loop of plastic is, it's all plastic. It's filled with water after rain for quite a while. Also, keep in mind that tarp was 550 feet. It's waterproof. A tree, when it goes in the ground, when you look at the top leaves, goes 5 to 7 times out in roots. The whole side of that roots for that tree line is being affected by those tarps. Some of those tarps have affected those trees since last year. That's our concern. So originally our lots flowed the way they're supposed to. I don't know what's going on there with trenching, but it's been going on since July. And there's now a berm in the back, approximately 300 feet with a trench that's been open that long. And I don't believe there's a permit. Thank you.
Sorry, in speaking to the tarp has nothing to do with the application tonight.
Well, it just has to do with the issues that we're having being next to this commercial operation with the tarps. That's why we showed you the pictures of that, plus the berm, and it affects. And plus, you got to remember where that greenhouse is going. He's got plastic all the way along there too. Right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next is, I think it might be Andrew Workington.
Just calling with Jennifer has this.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, and next I'm not sure, I can't read the name, but it's 3866 Rebec. 3866 Rebec. Okay, maybe they left. And then Shauna Uzat at 582 Wallace.
The opportunity. I have to admit, I didn't come here this evening intending to speak.
Okay.
And just to be, I came as emotional support, which we do for our friends. And after listening, I felt compelled to just say a few words. So, was prepared on the fly. The issue is not people being respectful, or traffic, or vegetables, or climate change, or how long you have lived in the neighborhood, or how many generations you have been farming, or neighborhood safety. I don't see how vegetables make your neighborhood safer, but it was proposed that the garden makes the neighborhood safer. That's not the issue. It's not the issue of whether or not it was farmland in the past. The house I live at is the old farmhouse, and my entire neighborhood was a farm at one point. It is no longer. It is a residential neighborhood, like you see there. It's not about whose side you're on, for that matter. Everybody here came to speak because they are on a side. That's not the matter. It's not about the need for farmers markets. It's not about the need for competitive in the grocery industry. It's not about supporting farmers. This is about location and what is being proposed. I look at that image and I have spent many hours in the backyard of the campus, and that picture does not show you in any sense of any possibility. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. That picture does not show you the impact of living next door to a greenhouse and a farm. That picture does not do justice to the issue. I'm a teacher. I think you need a field trip to go see what's being done, to live it, to see that your decision is going to impact somebody's property value. It is going to impact somebody's daily life in their yard where they have built a home. That is the issue. What the bylaws exist for is to protect a way of life. And that's a residential zone. So I had no intention of speaking this evening, but after listening to the argument, I just felt like I needed to say that I hope we look at the impact of the greenhouse and recognize, why was the bylaw put in place in the first place? And why does it exist before you decide to go outside of what the bylaw allows for? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, and Karen Crouch. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Julie Doyen. Oh, that was a mistake. Okay, I'll cross you off. Okay, so those are our in opposition. Now for information, we have Barry Neza at 3660 Mowat. Is he present?
I'm just here to
Just to listen.
take it all in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then Ed Wall, but we heard from Ed Wall, so.
I'm on the wrong side here.
Right. Okay. Okay, and now we will give the podium to the applicant for closing remarks.
So, in closing, I can advise that the Natchicks have put out a petition to see who would be in support. And so there are 59 people that signed petition and I'll provide it to council. It shows where all their locations are in your rural municipality. There's also one further letter of support from Richard Rebeck and Van Cadzo that couldn't be here this. So I'll provide those to council with your permission.
Yes, thank you.
Chair.
Sorry.
Right now.
So I'll go to my, okay, that's fine. We won't review it. We'll leave it at the desk that it's sitting at.
In terms of rebuttal to what my learned friends presented, I am somewhat confused that the NATCHUs weren't provided with the materials that you were provided with. So I don't understand that. I'm legal counsel as well, and it's an obligation on legal counsel to provide the opposite side any materials that they're providing to counsel. So I would consider those not provided to the NATCHUs. They aren't able to respond to those materials at this point. They haven't seen them, they haven't read them, they don't know what's in them. And it puts them in a very awkward position. And I don't expect that from council. When council comes, I expect it perhaps from, you know, members of the public that don't know the rules, but the NATCHUs definitely should have that. And I don't know what your rules are here in terms of them having an opportunity to look at it this evening before we respond, whether they can have a 10-minute recess to do that. But I do have concerns with that, and I'll leave that for council to consider how you wish to address that, or whether those materials should even be before you if the NATCHUs haven't reviewed them. My position is in a court of law, which is different than here, that the judge would absolutely not accept those materials because they are not properly before opposing counsel or the NATCHUs. And I understand counsel may not know the NATCHUs at council, and I'm not going to get into law society stuff and legalities of that.
Correct.
However, it is inappropriate for them to file materials that have not been provided to the applicant. And so I would ask that council give very little weight to anything that's been provided that the NATCHUs haven't seen. Now, in terms of—
Can I just address your concern there first? And I think I'm going to move to our professionals to give an answer as well. I'm not certain that in this set of a public hearing that you get the opportunity to see that material because everybody is coming to present their case, whether it be in support or in opposition. I understand that you're used to a different hearing than we have before us today. So we had questions too, when it was on our desk when we got here this evening, and we did speak to our staff. We've not had time to read, of course, it wasn't possible, but I'm going to pass over to the planner to give a little bit of our process and steps, and maybe she can answer that for you. Kara?
Yeah, so we of course go by the Planning Act. That's our legislation. So in the Planning Act, there's no timeline as to when you can hand in materials. It's not a cutoff before the hearing. You can still have them in right now. The hearing is still open. So Suzanne, you can pass those documents along.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now to her question, is she
to them receiving the materials?
Yes.
As I mentioned, the public hearing is for people to bring their opinions, their materials. So this is the avenue for them to bring them forward. So anything we received before the public hearing packages on Fridays were received, went into the hearing packages. Anything received after that were gathered and brought to the meeting. So it's only the next business day, which is Monday and Tuesday. So
Correct.
And then council has the right to take a break to review that material or choose to close the hearing and defer the decision and review the material.
Okay, and as for the submission from opposing counsel, do the NATCHUs get to review that information, or is it just for council's benefit the night of the hearing?
It's for council's benefit the night of the hearing.
Okay, so that answers the questions. Thank you.
And I'll confer with my clients to see if they wish to see that, because it wasn't all presented to you as a council. Some of it was a lot over this. I won't talk about it here tonight. So there may be things in there we're unaware of that weren't part of this public hearing. In terms of some of the issues that arose. In terms of the 2 building maximum, and that you should deny this request based on that the bylaw says there's 2 building maximum, and so thus you should automatically deny. Precedents have already been set, as you've heard from people in the community and in your room today, that you yourselves and this council has allowed exceptions to that bylaw with good reason and with thoughtful consideration to how you want to develop your rural municipality and how you want to portray that to others, and in terms of encouraging people to come to this municipality as well. I encourage you to be very careful with the words intensity and small scale agriculture, because your bylaw is silent on what the definition of those words actually mean. And there really is no case law in Manitoba to define those words. There's some out of Saskatchewan. I didn't think that this council would necessarily be swayed by me marching up here and saying, hey, here's a bunch of cases from other provinces. But when a bylaw doesn't define those, intensity can be looked at in a number of different ways, and a number of people have different definitions of what intensity means and how that is defined, and also what a small scale agricultural operation really is. When we look around us in Manitoba, there's farmers that farm hectares of land, multiple townships. Those would be considered large scale farming. But what is small scale farming? Is it a quarter section? There's a lot of people that still, try to make a living on a quarter section of land, a family farm. That would be considered small scale agriculture in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. So when we start talking about defining these terms in the bylaws and what you should do with them, this is a very small scale operation. This is not an operation that is supplying, superstore or supplying, a huge industry. This is a small family farm on a very small piece of land. There was a comment that this is a residential neighborhood. It's not zoned residential, it's zoned for agriculture as well. And when you purchase land in an area where it has dual zoning, those are the things you expect. And some people buy land because they want to go back to the country. They want to have that rural heritage. They want to look out their window and see a field of flax or a field of canola. That's important to them. But this is not a residential neighborhood, strictly speaking. You have it zoned for agriculture, and it has been zoned for this specialized agriculture. And you've heard 4 previous applications we've heard tonight approving this type of agriculture in your community. The drainage and tarps, I think, is a red herring, quite frankly. It has nothing to do with the application before you. Those are other issues. Those are can be dealt with by other methods, and it's not something that should affect in terms of this application. It really is something outside of the application. It has nothing to do with it. So I'll leave my comments at that. Well water, there's provincial agencies that basically will test well water for free. If you're a farmer, you generally, as Councillor indicated, get your well water tested. It's something that's about personal safety. It has nothing to do with the Natrix or their operation. They've already explained to you where any water that's used, gray water that's used off of the vegetables, run off into a stream. That has all been vetted by the appropriate authorities. And so this well water testing and this concern for the well is also another red herring that I suggest is here to distract you from the real issue here, and that should take a back seat here tonight as well. In terms of the limits that they're requesting on terms of the Natrix, those are limits that are limiting somebody's personal livelihood. And those aren't before you either in terms of conditional use. You already know that the Natrix only allow pickups on one day, 4 hours of that day. Whether it's 50 cars or 60 cars, the impact to the community is minimal. People are there for 4 or 5 minutes. if council attended to their CSA, it is well organized. You pull into their driveway. Often Martin is out there and he's directing cars, you know, come in on this side, you go on this side. It flows through, people are there, they get their vegetables, they leave. Nobody's speeding down the roads. This isn't, you know, people are coming to get vegetables. It's not, it's something that is, I would suggest, you know, people who are involved in CSAs are coming there because they believe in agriculture, they believe in the organic farming, they believe in that lifestyle, and they're not zooming around the neighborhood, and you haven't heard that. And if there's any concern, I understand that there may be a picture based on what my learned friend said, of somebody parked on the road. That is something that is easily managed. The Natchecks they send out a weekly, this is your CSA, these are what you're gonna get. They can put a reminder in there, everybody, please make sure you pull onto the driveway. As I said, they're often out there directing people. That is something that can be addressed and shouldn't be a significant concern for this council. In terms of any drainage plan, Mr. Singh is absolutely correct. Anytime that there's a building permit, if this council approves these requests, anytime there's a building permit, those concerns are all addressed as part of any building permit and any plans that need to be made surrounding that. And so that's an aside. If you approve it, that can be addressed. There are methods to address that issue, and they will be addressed because the permits have to be in place. In terms of any costs associated with tree lines, again, the tree lines are on the neighbor's property. I'm not sure how the greenhouse or this shed are going to impact a tree line. That's not clear to me. I think that's another red herring that's been placed in front of this council, and council should disregard that. My understanding about fans in the greenhouse, because that has arisen, I've spoken to the family, the Natchecks, about that. The fans only run during hours allowed by bylaws. If you understand how a greenhouse works and the concept of a greenhouse, fans are used to cool the greenhouse. You're not running fans in the evening and at night. At those periods of time, you are trying to keep the plants warm and the greenhouse warm. It's also going to be addressed twofold because the type of building that they're putting up, this hoop building, has sides that roll up. So you're going to have natural airflow blowing under the building. We know that heat rises and will be pushed out at the top, and it won't be a fan system that's primarily relied on. That would be a backup system that is used rarely and only during bylaw hours based on my conversations with the Natchecks. In terms of any other concerns, I'm happy to try to answer questions, or if the family would answer any questions that I can.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Posthumus.
You mentioned a hoop system and you talked to them about that. Is this just a poly? Because my parents actually had greenhouses. We were in a similar business when I was a kid in BC. They do flap in the wind and make noise. So with the sides opening, is this a different type of surface on these hoop systems that would not be as loud as that?
Yes, well, just like the current greenhouse that we have, it's a double layer poly, and there's a air blowing in between the layers, so there's no flapping.
Okay.
Zero flapping. Yeah, actually, it strengthens like if there's a 70-kilometer-an-hour wind outside, whatever, the greenhouse hardly moves because it bounces off that inflated plastic.
Okay, that's my concern, because it being further back and closer to the neighbor, the sound of the greenhouse.
There'll be less noise from now on than.
It's a newer style.
And the one that's there now with noise, I heard about this noise, but we have one fan that we use most of the time. It's on a thermostat. It comes on when it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the greenhouse. So at 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night, it shuts off. It's done. Never are those fans running all night unless I forget to shut one off. And that's maybe a 1 odd or a 2 odd.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, do we have someone online?
One person on Zoom would like to speak.
They want to speak? When did they tune in? So I have to revert to my CO to see if it's permitted at this point to the public hearing. It is? Okay, so they can speak. Are they in support or in opposition?
Right now, they're signing as information. Giving them the message.
Yeah, my sheet. They're having technical, okay, that's fine. So we'll continue, and if, before we close the public hearing, if she comes back on, we can have her speak. Okay. Now, where were we? Questions? Any further questions for the applicant and their closing remarks? No? Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Is council prepared to close the public hearing? Or would you like to take a recess to review documents provided? Or are you prepared to close?
And I just going to mention that you can close it and then review the documentation. You just can't receive any new documentation after you close it.
Right, so I'm meaning we're prepared to close the public hearing. We'll take into consideration the documents over a recess. We'll come back for discussion. If not, we can proceed. We can close the public hearing and move to discussion. It's fine. I'm just giving the option.
Hello?
Oh, do we have somebody now?
Oh, yes. Can anyone hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry if I was just testing the microphone, and I'll be ready to speak whenever I'm allowed.
So you can speak now. You can first tell me your name and if you're in favor or in opposition or for information.
Okay, well, this is Ed and Shelley Lagasse on 3950 Mowat Road. Initially, it's very difficult, and in response to the question whether we're in support or in opposition or just for information, I just would like to ask a few questions first and also make a few statements. So one, and it'll probably
I'm just gonna stop you for just a second. I can't have you ask questions, but I can have you make a statement or a presentation. And first, I didn't catch your first name. If you could repeat it for me.
Yeah, it's Eden.
Eden.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you the floor and you can present either way.
Sure. Thanks thanks, Mayor and council members for having me or for letting me speak. I guess I wanted to raise an important question regarding the proposed decision. As I understand, there might be a decision made today on the application for this commercial greenhouse operation. So as a concerned neighbor or resident, I don't know if there's been any impact assessment or feasibility study regarding the potential impacts of these operations on whether it's on the resources that have been conducted by the applicant or the council members. And so my question is twofold. How can an informed decision be made today without a comprehensive assessment of the potential impacts on resources, including but not limited to water usage, environmental sustainability, infrastructure strain, or neighboring properties? And two, in the event that intensified activities associated with the commercial greenhouse operations result in unintended risks or consequences, will the council consider offsetting any associated costs or liabilities to protect the well-being of the community and neighboring properties? I guess there should be an understanding of the potential impacts and necessary mitigation measures that should precede any decision-making process. And I'm asking the council members that by ensuring that an impact assessment and feasibility studies are conducted, then the council can make a better informed decision that probably safeguards the interests of all stakeholders here today. Moreover, I'd like to also probably mention that establishing a mechanism to address any unintended risks or consequences, as it was previously mentioned, potentially through cost offsetting, would demonstrate the council's commitment to the well-being of the community and mitigate potential negative outcomes. So I would kindly request that these questions, that we consider this. And also, I just wanted to make a statement, as there's been some, I guess, misinformed comments made about water testing. So water testing, as commonly understood, can be just a fecal matter test, which is very inexpensive. But when it comes to commercial or any sort of agricultural intensive practices, it's a very different water test. I don't think anybody really understands the degree and the level of costs involved. It's not a simple $30 test. It's more than a $1,500 test. As recently we were impacted, both myself and the neighbors, by a significant amount of flooding, where runoff, agricultural runoff from the neighboring fields was a concern, to the point where we had to get our water. We just couldn't drink our normal water. We had to get some potable water, and we understood that the costs associated with just getting the nitrates alone, not the pesticides or anything else, is in the sums of $1,500 to $2,000. So I just wanted to make a statement about that, because it seems like people are really misinformed about that, and I don't think it is a red herring, as the councillor has suggested. So it depends on various factors, including the number of samples, the scope of analysis, the complexity of contaminants, for example, being tested, and the laboratory fees are huge. So for commercial green agricultural operations, which may require frequent and extensive testing due to potential environmental impacts, the expenses can be substantial. So I just want people to know that, simply because both my wife and I we have a master's degree in agriculture. And so I don't think people realize the extent to which their statements can carry an impact. So it's crucial to recognize that water testing expenses can be a significant consideration for a greenhouse operator and a commercial greenhouse operator especially, and for those utilizing shared resources, such as wells or water sources with neighboring properties. So the financial burden of testing should be appropriately addressed and accounted for in the planning process as well from council, or taken in consideration. So that would be I guess, the bulk of my statement, and I hope council can take that into consideration before making a decision today. That probably there's insufficient information at this point to, I would say, to make a quick decision like this. Oh, and one last thing. There's a substantial difference between a hoop house and a greenhouse. A greenhouse, and as the applicant said that he was just going to install a hoop house, well, then that's not the application. So if the application should reflect what the applicant is making. If he's making an application for a hoop house, then it should say that. So, you know, there's various issues to address here, and I think council should consider all these factors. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's no further presentations. Council, have you made a decision whether you'd like to take a recess or would you like to close the public hearing and move to discussion? Forrest, you'd like to take a recess? Okay, so I have one counselor in favor of a recess. Councilor Duval.
Matter of procedure, if we do close the public hearing, that means that we cannot accept any further comments or information.
Correct. Yes.
We deal with what we have. If we leave it open, then we are subject to receiving more information. So I think the question is, do we have what we need to know now? Or are we looking for more?
I'll speak for myself. I'm prepared to close the public hearing.
I am as well.
Councilor Imhoff.
Yep.
Councilor Posthumous. And Councilor Horechko. Right, we'll take the recess before we come back for discussion. And
the resolutions to close.
Please, I'm just making sure that we're following process there. Okay, thank you.
Be resolved that council close the public hearing of council for conditional use 19/2023 for 3850 Mowat Road.
I have a mover, please. Councilor Imhoff, second by Councilor Duval. All those in favor? That's carried and the public hearing is now closed and we will move for recess.
We will close the public hearing for the variation.
Oh, for the variation, yes, sorry.
Resolved that council close the public hearing of council for variation order 64/2023 for 3850 Mowat Road.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Horechko, seconded by Councilor Posthumous. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now closed. And we will move for recess. 10 minutes, 15 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes. Is everybody? Okay. Council is back. After reviewing the information that was provided before and during the public hearing. So thank you for submitting your information. So I'm going to open the floor up for discussion now. And
the resolution, no? Then discussion.
oh, we closed up. Oh, yeah. So for resolution, please.
Be resolved that conditional use 19/2023 be approved, subject to the following condition. That this conditional use limited to specialized agriculture use as proposed in this application. Any changes to the use will require new conditional use approval. The seasonal market gardening operation can operate year-round. Community shared agriculture, CSA pickup, shall be limited to 1 day per week as chosen by the applicant. An amendment to the existing development agreement may be required. The specialized agricultural operation shall comply with noise nuisance bylaw 2016-04 with the exemption of farm equipment used for agricultural uses, which is exempt under the bylaw. Machinery or equipment shall not be stored on the front lawn, within the front yard, or along Mowat Road at any time, with the exception that machinery and equipment can be parked on the approach while the seasonal market garden is in effect. All parking must be managed on site. No parking, loading, storage, or display area shall be permitted along Mowat Road. There shall be no outdoor lighting located and arranged on the property so that the rays of light are directed to any adjacent properties. Applicant owner amend the development agreement with the RMLD St. Paul if required. The market garden adheres to section 63.3 performance standards for commercial developments as follows. All commercial developments shall be designed to convey an image of cohesive appearance and architectural character. Ensure that offices, reception, and public use areas are easily identifiable and visible from the public roadway, and shall be constructed and finished with durable materials to maintain the initial appearance of the development throughout the life of the project.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Orozco, seconded by Councillor Bastidas. I'll now open the floor up for discussion. Councillor Duval.
Yes, I'd just like it confirmed that some of the other conditional requirements that they will be addressed in the building permit stage, as opposed to be written in the resolution that you just read up now. Things like how is the gray water going to be handled? How is it going to get to where it wants to go? Perhaps some of the studies on the well water effect. Some of these things that were mentioned along through the whole evening. We don't write them into the resolution here. They are included in the building. I would just like that to be confirmed.
Okay. So right now, discussion is amongst councils. Madam CAO, are we able to address our staff at this point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duval, I think that we're veering away from what the application is for tonight. The application is for a structure. The business has been operating since 1990. They deal with their gray water. Putting a structure on top of the area where they farm currently does not, it's not what we're dealing with tonight. It doesn't change what they do. They're not asking to change their operation. They're asking for a structure. And I think that the drainage and height requirements, side yard requirements, anything that applies to the structure will be dealt with through the building permit, and we can revert to Mr. Planner, who can confirm with RRPD through the process of building permit.
Right, so exactly, all these things will be done at the building permit stage. Also, the information that is shared at the building permit stage is not public domain, so we can't really talk about it. Whatever the requirements are for building permit or the building.
Correct. Okay.
I should mention that the building permit, they have to contact our operations department as part of the building permit, and the operations department has to sign off on our block grade plan for them to even issue it the permit.
Right, well, thank you for that confirmation, and it is relevant because the operation operates under a conditional use, but it is being expanded. So tomorrow is going to be different than today. And there might be extra conditions. They will be handled under the building permit as you confirmed. Thank you.
Can you elaborate on expanded? Just you're saying that they'll be planting more plants, is that?
That's what I understand.
That's what you understand, because I understand that where they're planting right now is they're covering. So it's not that they're increasing their operation, it's that they are covering their operation to increase their months of I guess length of or in advance seeding before we get actual weather that they could plant it outside. I think that's the purpose. It's not to expand the operation, it's just to cover what's existing.
I understand it will expand in the output.
Longer growing season.
No,
It's a longer season or more area.
I think it's, yeah, so I don't.
I think that's the usual purpose of some expansion.
So it's not that they're expanding their operation, it's that the operation that they currently have in the ground, where you're seeing a tarp, is going to be covered by a structure. It doesn't increase the amount of planting and increase their length of I'll say gardening, but farming, right? So it's increasing. I'm not a farmer or a gardener, but it allows them to probably seed earlier in the spring and then have a longer production. It's not increasing what they do. Is anyone else on council can attest to that? Councillor Posthumous?
Yeah, so my understanding from the drawings I've seen, and the questions I asked, so that tarped area that's there is where he's gonna put his greenhouse. The tarped area is where he's growing. Now, so that tarped area, the front tarped area would be gone. So that problem by the house would be gone and that there'd be a hoot. Basically, similar to when you put the covers on your tomatoes you can buy that are large plastic domes and you set them on so that you can start your tomato earlier. He'll be starting his growing season earlier. My question with it was addressed in the permit. Now that it is a building and water is coming off, the drainage would have to be taken care of because there won't be ground to take that water.
As mentioned, our operations department will have to approve the locker drainage plan before they can even issue a building permit also.
And as for the sound and fans, that would be under the noise bylaw. But with questions, that was answered that they don't run at night, so yeah, after 11. So I see it, it's not a, that's why I asked the question on greenhouse. To me, a greenhouse is something that's heated and it's going to be open all year round and you can grow vegetables in the winter. This is only being used during this season for summer's sales.
Councillor Reginald?
So since Councillor Duval and Posthumous addressed the drainage and the building, I'm gonna go back to our heritage, which was market gardening. And East St. Paul was built on it. The Kaminskis, the Rebecks, you know, there was a lot of people doing it. I look at that area still next to Mr. Kumka, Mr. You know, Hatchik has a small farm, 23 acres right across the street from it. It's a farm, it's still farming community. Maybe one day it gets bought and it'll be a residential community just like Wallace Avenue and that. But I feel that that I'm in favor of this moving forward. The tarps are going to get covered by hoopos. And I think all in all, it's all going to work out for everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming out and you know, saying their piece one way or the other, but you know, that's about it. For anybody else, I had one more. I wasn't quite finished. I will quick. So with the building added onto the front, you're losing the 120 square foot one would be gone because you're putting it in the same place. So that drops the numbers down also in the total size. But and I don't know if the CEO can even answer me now. That building is supposed to be for equipment, so that cannot be used for processing. It would, we don't get a development agreement under a permit, but
Different building permits, right? So different structures have different things in them. So like a structure that just houses equipment wouldn't have sinks and stuff, for example.
okay, that would address that. It's just used for equipment. Yeah, so the business is not expanding in any way with their processing bill. Or their days of the week or anything else. Okay, thank you.
I have nothing really to add here between the presentations and the chance to review the material that was presented here. I think all of my questions have been addressed.
Councillor Duval, are you're done? Okay, great. I guess I also want to say thank you for everyone to come out and present and support in opposition. It always helps make a decision. I do believe that our local farmers are a huge asset to our community and we should be supporting our local farmers. And I think that sometimes in public hearings with all the information being presented, we veer off from what the applicant is asking for. And once again, I'll just reiterate that they're asking to cover a portion of their land that they farm currently. which does not increase the operation. And I say unfortunate because I think that our local farmers are much needed in our society. And I think that we learned that through COVID, how much, food meant to us and how expensive it got. And local producing farmers, they help the environment, fossil fuels. There's tremendous benefits to having a local farmer. So thank you for everybody coming out tonight. So I will ask council if we're prepared to render our decision. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, we are moving on to 6.3.
Resolution for the delineation.
Which? Oh, the second one, sorry. I keep forgetting there was two.
It's combined.
Sorry, we have one more to.
Order 64/2023 be approved, subject to the following conditions. This variance is limited to what is proposed in this application. Any changes in use, additions, and or replacements may require a new variance approval. An applicant owner obtains required permits from the Red River Planning District and the municipality.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Horechko, seconded by Councillor Imhoff. Any discussion? No, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Now on to 6.3, variation order 71.
Give them a minute.
Be resolved that council open the public hearing of council for variation order 71/2023 for 2853 Henderson Highway.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Horechko, second by Councillor Postumus. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now open and I'll pass it off to Mr. Black.
Thank you, ma'am. This is variance application VO 71/2023. The subject property is located at 2853 Henderson Highway. The applicant wishes to offer an increase in size for an accessory structure and increase in height for a principal dwelling in the single family zone. This is the variance request table. The applicant wishes to increase the height from the required 35 feet to 36.8 feet and increase the size of an accessory structure from required 1,200 square feet to 1,690.47 square feet. This is the location map. As you can see, property gains access from Henderson Highway. This is a rendering provided by the applicant. Red River Planning notes that if you measure it from the ground, it's about 32.6 feet. But only because the bylaw says to measure the height from mid-grade to the top of the chimney, it's 36.8 and exceeds the required 35 feet. These are more renderings provided by the applicant. They're in the process of constructing a single family house. This is the second storage and the garage. This is the view from the back. As you can see, this is the primary garage and this is the second storage, which could be used as a garage. More renderings. As I said before, the house design includes a second attached accessory structure, thereby increasing the square footage of an attached accessory structure from 1,200 square feet to 1,690.47 square feet. As I said before, the height is made from mid-grade to the top of the chimney, thereby resulting in increased height, which is about 5% of the requirements. We did not receive any objections on this proposal. If the council wishes to approve this application, Red River Planning recommends two conditions. Number one, this variance is limited to increased area of accessory structure and increased height of the building. Any changes in use, additions, and or replacement may require new approval. Number two, the applicant owner obtains all the required permits from Red River Planning District and the RMLP St. Paul. Thank you. If the council has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? No, I have one question. The overall coverage of the lot percentage wise can be?
It meets the zoning requirements.
Right, but what is the percentage that they could cover their lot potentially?
I can.
I think it's 40.
30%.
30%. Do you know what the house currently is covering in percentage?
Include the letter of intent. The applicant. Doesn't really say the area, maybe the applicant can.
See that at least half the lot is empty and then the house is empty on the other half of the lot, so it's definitely 30%.
It's less than 30%.
So it's less.
Yeah.
That's what my question was. Thank you. Counselor, are there any further questions for the planner? No, okay. Is the applicant present to speak to the application? Can you come forward, please? Can you tell me your name and your address before you give your presentation?
Talk close to the mic.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Henderson, and I'm applicant for this property, and he's the owner.
You're the builder?
Yes.
Okay, oh, you're the builder.
Okay.
We are just like overall, this whole roof is not that we are raising like 26.8. It's just a one perpendicular wall in the middle of the house. So that is like 26.8. Like from the mitigated from the back. From the front is 32. And the garage is that is a part of the house, and we need for the storage, but they call it the same things. The garage and storage is the same thing.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the applicant, Councilor Posthumous?
Yeah, so you're saying storage and that, but there's no business or anything on a home. It's just you may have an RV or your boat or stuff like that. No, I meant, why do you need the extra storage?
We have like 5 cars.
We have 5 cars. So it's not a single family home?
It's a single family, but we have a 5 car, 4 cars goes in back garage and 1 car.
Oh, okay. 5 cars, okay.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. And then Jaspreet Dillon, I assume it's in, are you the homeowner? Okay, do you want to speak to your application tonight? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, we don't have anybody signed in opposition, nobody for information. Is there anybody online? No one's online. Is council prepared to close the public hearing? Okay, for resolution, please.
Be resolved that council close the public hearing of council for variation order 71, 2023, 2853 Henderson Highway.
I have a mover, please. Councilor Frenchco, seconded by Councilor Imhoff. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Public hearing is now closed. And then for resolution.
Be resolved that variation order 71, 2023 be approved subject to the following conditions. This variance is limited to increased area of accessory structures and increased height of the building. Any changes in use, additions, and or replacement may require new variance approval. Applicant owner obtains required permits from the residential planning district and the municipality.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Frenchco, seconded by Councilor Posthumous. I'll open the floor up for discussion. Okay, the reason I asked the percentage of coverage of the home is, could you bring up the design of the home? The back in particular. So here you see that they have these garages at the back. However, this could still be house, right? So we have to consider that this house could have been larger than it is. Yes, they have it designated as garages, but the way they designed it, the curb appeal is has been done with, you know, really good taste in mind. So we're not impacting a street with a 5-car garage that you would see in a small house attached. I think the design works really well, and I commend them for their efforts in designing this properly. So therefore, I would support it tonight based on the fact that, this could have been the portion of the back could have just been a family room or any kind of house. They're not over their percentage of coverage of the lot. Councillor Postuma.
And I agree with that. I think the way it was designed and that was really good. And it's on a lot that's a bigger lot and it's treed. It's not like it's a 5-car garage or whatever in a high dense area. I think it fits very well into that lot.
No, okay, I'll call for the question then. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. 6.4. Resolution.
Deputy Council, open the public hearing of council for variation order 72/2020 for 36 Highland Park Drive.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hutchko.
Yeah, I'd just like to be excused from this. I have a conflict of interest with this matter, so I'm gonna step out.
Okay, so we'll just wait till Councillor Hutchko leaves the room. Nothing we need to do. We're just confused.
Yeah, he has the right to recuse himself. Feels it necessary. But the door must remain.
Oh,
I will say that an application for a fence, I find it hard to believe that a councillor would be benefiting from it personally. So the recusing today, I'm not in support of, but Councillor Hutchko has left the room and he will recuse himself. We as councillors have to recuse ourselves when we benefit or profit from an application. And I'm not certain tonight how there's a benefit or profit from a fence variation order. I do know that there was some submission and I'm not in 100% agreement with it. But we'll move forward. So where were we? We were opening the public hearing.
Mover and a seconder.
Mover, okay, can we mover please? Councillor Postumus, seconded by Councillor Imhoff. All those in favor? That's carried and the public hearing is now open. Mr. Planner.
Thank you, ma'am. This is variance application BS 2/2023. The subject property is located at 36 Highland Park Drive. The applicant wishes to allow an increase in height for a rear fence from the maximum 6.56 feet to 8 foot height in the single family zone. This is the variance requestable, as I said before, they're increasing the height from 6.56 to 8 feet in the rear yard. This is the site, this is the location map. As you can see, the property is at the intersection of Highland Drive and Glenway. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. The red portion is where the height of the fence would be 8 feet. And the yellow portion here, it would comply with the 6.6 or 6.56. These are some of the pictures that were taken by Red River Plan Enforcement from Glenway. So this is the property, this is the subject property. The back. This is the current fence that there is at the site right now. As I said before, the letter of intent was provided by the applicant. It states that the main floor elevation and the patio looks directly into the neighboring home, which is why they requested for an increased height. We did not receive any objections from the East St. Paul administration, but we did receive objection letters signed by 5 neighboring property owners that have been added to the docket for council's consideration. There was also a formal objection letter from the retail property owner. That has also been added in the docket for council's consideration. If the council wishes to approve this application, we recommend this one condition. This variance is limited to increased fence height as proposed in this application. Any changes in use, additions, and or replacement are required in approval. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for the planner this evening? Okay. Is the applicant present? Peter Kanakis? Yes. Would you like to come forward and present?
It's Peter Kanakis. I'm the drive. I'm proposing
Can you talk closer to us?
Sorry, I'm proposing to put 206-foot fence, 138 feet, foot fence, 8 feet. Decorated wrought iron fence from 68 feet, that's 6.6. I engaged Wallace and Wallace, which is a industrial fence company.
Okay, I'll ask the first question. Why the 8 feet opposed
The
to?
only reason it's 8 feet, the town houses are structured, is looking into each other's kitchen, each other's bathroom. So that's why. So the way that the house is built, it's on an acre, the house has a big wall. Part of the property, the way it's designed, is not equal to the backyard. So the backyard one's so it kind of. Privacy for the. That's.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? No, okay, thank you.
Actually, I have one.
Oh, sorry, if you could come back up, Mr. Kanakis. Councillor Imhoff has a question for you.
So was there any thought given here to maintaining the 6'6" fence and using greenery to provide the extra blockage or coverage on your side of that property so that we didn't, we wouldn't have to come for a variation order?
Planted the trees on the side and we had multiple trees at the time. Just the way that. I don't have.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, John Hawk. I don't know, it's written a little bit. I'll let you tell me your last name.
Thanks, John Hawcroft. I work for Stu Janakis. And I'd like to say that this is going to be an aesthetically pleasing fence, professionally built. And if I could just describe the situation a bit, the patio is here and yard green is appropriate. So when we get to the property line, 6'6" fence, 24-inch high deck doesn't cut it for any privacy. That's why we like to increase it by a mere 18 inches. Just for that added privacy, which most people desire.
Okay, thank you.
And can I just say one more thing? This is my first time here and it's really exciting, but I noticed that sometimes gets derailed from the topic. And I'm hoping that we'll stick to the topic of a fence and nothing else.
That's our job, is to make sure that we're dealing with the application.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I had one quick question.
Right.
Yeah, so on the angle you're saying, so the 8 foot's the highest point, but there's other, as part of it is all not 8 feet, the whole length. Is that what you're saying?
It's not under, oh, just where the houses are.
Just where the houses are.
And once the houses aren't looking at each other, let's say, goes to an ornamental wrought iron fence, which was shown in one of your photos.
Yeah.
To match the existing.
Yeah.
Fence for security.
Matches the existing, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Okay, so do we have anybody online? No, okay, so we'll move to in opposition. And once again, this signature, I think it's Thomas now, but it's 1010 Highland Park. Yes. Come forward.
I stand here tonight, I'm in opposition to the variance, but I'm not in opposition to privacy, by any stretch of the imagination. I live down the street, I'm at 1010 Highland Park Drive, I live in North Cul-de-sac. So people might say, but what skin do you live in this skin? Well, I've been in the neighborhood for 28 years, and I've watched this neighborhood grow. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And for the most part, the neighborhood is fairly open. There's very few fences. There are 11 fences that contain swimming pools by law. My house is one of them. They're all in the rear yard, which is great because then all the front yards are wide open. There are, I believe, 4 houses that do have front yard fences, which are larger properties, which are fine, and a lot of them are wrought iron, which is great, because it doesn't obscure views. And it still adds that openness in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. I understand, speaking with the privacy issue, I understand the need for privacy. And as such, there's a couple of points, one being that my property, for example, my neighbor is 10 feet away. This property, if you look on the overhead, the distance between their houses is very significantly greater than 10 feet. My neighbor has a porch that's 10 feet outside my property. And the issue again with my pool was I have privacy, and I installed a 6.5 foot fence, which did nothing because of the way the alignment of line of sight didn't do anything. So instead of doing anything as far as like, I would have to, in order to obtain blockage and obtain privacy, and at that close range, which is 10 or 12 feet from the neighbor's house, I would have had to build about a 14-foot high fence. So not doing that, we just planted trees, as Councillor had mentioned about infilling with greenery. Create a beautiful green wall, no obtrusive blockage with fences, problem solved. So if you look at the way the property is laid out with, as this gentleman, the landscaper said, it swales, which they do. I wonder if where they actually pulled the number of 8 feet for a fence out of. Because if you put an 8-foot fence there in the dip of the swale, I don't think it has any blockage of the view for either property, because it actually dives. So in effect, 8-foot fence is not going to provide any privacy. If any privacy is to be derived from this, it would be in everybody's interest if you put a privacy screen closer to the patio or post pool or whatever it's going to be. And that way you wouldn't have to go through all of this time of applying for a variance. And you can just, according to regular planning, you can put a 15-foot high privacy screen if you want, as long as it's 10 feet from the property line, you can do whatever you want. The closer it is to the actual patio, the more privacy you will actually obtain from it. And then both parties will be happy. So just from aesthetically as being part of the neighborhood, I am not in favor of seeing a 138-foot wall along the side of that house. Thank you.
Okay, and is your last name Berzicios? Is that how?
You're close.
Okay, how do I?
I scribbled, so it's not your.
Yes, yeah.
It's Berzish.
Okay, so how do you spell it?
It's BERZISH.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next we have Melina. And I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Okay,
Yes, we're in a position, my husband will be signing.
okay, and you are George? Okay, George, you can come forward.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. Submitted to Santana package with our opposition. I'm not sure if you had a chance to read. We have our own verbatim for everybody. But I just want to highlight a few things. Mr. Jack is right. Well, up until 2016, separating the two properties. What was happening at that time? A lot of water from Mr. Jack's property was draining on the property. And it was designed that way. And also our neighbors north, their property was draining on our property. We redid our total landscape. We had severe problems with swamping. It's a lot of mosquitoes, and our trees were down. So we got the whole place, and we worked with this municipality to build a riverbed, natural swales, water from Glenway, drains all the way to the back of our property, and then drains towards the creek. So what you'll see swales and gullies, so the water comes into this swale. So the reason I bring that up is where the fence will go, it's really at the low point. And you see from the report that we took a 2x6, 8 feet high, and placed it at the property line as you can see, it doesn't provide. Still is exposed the areas, even. If it did provide, let's say, 5 or 6 baggage, then you may have a valid reason for it, but it doesn't provide that privacy that is looking for. The other thing you'll note in pictures that we provided, if you look from Glenway into the property, it's all exposed. You can see, even if you had an 8-foot fence, you can still see the backyard and the deck from Glenway. So the privacy issue isn't going to be resolved by putting up a fence. We're not opposed to doing a fence as long as it's within the bylaw. We're against doing an 8-foot fence because it also would be a nice one. And it doesn't meet with everything that everybody else is doing. The other comment Mr. Chang made is he does have a more frontage in front of his property and less in the back. Although that is true, if you look at most of the property, especially on the limit, they usually have a 10 feet set off from your property line to the house. So really, 20 feet. From our window from organic to our property line is 37 feet. So between our two properties, probably close to 70. So we have more than enough. If you look at the pictures also that we provided, the tree line that we have is much higher than even the 8-foot fence. So the privacy issue just is not being resolved by doing this. Okay. The other thing is, and I think Mr. Tom mentioned about food. There's a lot of people that have food. No one has any fences. So I don't really see that. Again, we're not opposed to fence in favor of privacy. There may be other options for him to resolve privacy issues. That the 8-foot fence is not going to resolve. It's just only going to be an eyesore, and it's going to be controversial bylaw, and it opens up a hornet's nest. Someone says, "Well, I want an 8-foot fence." We have precedents already. Seems like everybody in the neighborhood is fine. And I can go into my thing. You've read them. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Emma, do you have a question? Looks like you're reading.
I'm just catching up. No, I'm good right now.
Okay, thank you. You're good? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have Leonard. Once again, Labona, okay. You're for information. Do you want to speak to the application?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We also have concerns in this situation and at this point in opposition to the 8-foot fence.
Okay.
One of the aesthetic values of living in the neighborhood, as pointed out, is the landscaping, the fact that there aren't a lot of fences. Walking reducer creates a very expansive look. Certainly as you approach downtown 11 towards Highland Park Drive, you have an arbor of trees, spruce trees, deciduous trees, and it creates a beautiful aesthetic. An 8-foot fence, creates a barrier. I can't imagine anyone that's ever written into any Architectural Digest magazine saying, "Look at our beautiful 8-foot solid wood fence." So it doesn't go with the aesthetics of the other fences and designs in the neighborhood. And quite frankly, that's one of the assets. I've been a resident for 25 years. We recently did repair or replace rather fence. The window would now. We stayed within the bylaw. Our neighbors have 3 dogs, and it works just fine. So my concern coming here was how an 8-foot fence, as you're approaching west, down 1 towards Highland Park, what is that going to look like for future purchaser of my home? How does that impact the overall aesthetic of that beautiful arbor of trees? The perhaps issue could be resolved. Away from also property in Phoenix, a gated community, and there was a professional review by an architectural firm that was hired. So anyone wants to make an adjustment, You pay an architect to review your plan, even if you had an architect design your, shall we say, addition or variance to the original home design. Also, I think that there's probably, on this perhaps more philosophically, that I think having a property, like Mr. Janaka says, there's also a stewardship because that property is a landmark property in East St. Paul. I think it's no longer just about anyone outside of East St. Paul. And I think Mr. Janaka is a steward of that property now. And it was beautifully designed 32, 33 years ago. I remember looking at it going up back in 1990. And I still think it's an amazing property, and preserving it as it is without making huge modifications. Because often, if we're sacrificing aesthetics for utility, we're losing something. I mean, we can always make something more useful, but that's a very subjective thing. The beauty of something is something that the entire community shares. And I think this is a responsibility that goes with these types of properties. So my concern is about the aesthetic of the fence, and as was noted the speaker, that it also set a precedent where you start having these fences going up willy-nilly because there's been a precedent set for an increased height. And frankly, where's it at? 8 feet to going up 6, and many arguments could be made, but it doesn't enhance the overall community aesthetic. And that would be an absolute shame. So we've heard words in previous presentations today about things like compatibility and impact and so on. So I'd like to leave Mayor and councilors with the idea that just because we can, the question we need to start asking ourselves, should we? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions? No, okay, thank you very much. Okay, is anybody online? No, okay, is council prepared to, oh, sorry. I have to bring up the applicant to see if he wants to have closing remarks. Sorry, it's becoming a long evening.
There, again, I've just said you, 68 feet of the corner. So I have a street. And we'll continue the integrity that's another 68 feet. So from the street appearance that the gentleman just was talking about, it won't lose the integrity until it goes 60 feet, 68 feet. And then from there, the fence goes to the 8 feet. Yes. So I took that into it. Wall supplies.
Councilor Dumel? Sorry, just a second. I think there's a question.
Yes, the proposed location of the fence, it looks like it's cutting right through a stand of trees. That's right. Yes, there's, yeah. And according to some information you received, those trees are higher than 8 feet. Wouldn't it be possible to fill in whatever gaps there are there with a few extra trees? Actually, if you look at the design of the fence is right there, it gets tight in the yard. And there's no room to have nothing left in the back.
That all? Okay, thank you very much. No, actually, I can't have you respond. I apologize. Okay. Council prepared to close the public hearings? Okay, for resolution,
Be resolved that council close the public hearing of council for variation order 72 to 2023 for 36 Highland Park Drive.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Posthumous, second by Counselor Imhoff. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now closed. Sorry, did you vote in favor of the public hearing closing? I didn't see your arm go.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay, for resolution.
Be resolved that variation order 72 to 2023 be approved, subject to the following condition. The variance request limited to increased fence height as proposed within this application. Any further changes and additions will require new variance approval.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Posthumous. I'll open the floor up for discussion. Pardon me? Does anybody want us open? Anyone have anything to say? Counselor Duval,
Wish I could visit the site and apologize for not doing so before. But this is hard to determine from the information we got just for what it's entailed from both parties. I understand both points of view. Some ways 8-foot fence doesn't sound overly high, especially when it's sitting in a bit of a dip in the landscape anyway. Then there is some merit to the point of view that there isn't much of the same thing around anywhere in the neighborhood. And it is visible, at least to a short distance from Glenway, apparently. Kind of like to see that for myself.
I'm going to go to Counselor Imhoff because he recently found some interesting information about fences in our community that changed in 2016. Do you want to discuss the policy that you read or the bylaw that you read?
Well, prior to 2016, we weren't allowed to have wooden fences, right? Solid wooden fences. It had to be decorative wrought iron or wrought iron or decorative chain link. So 2016 is when the wording in the bylaw got changed for that. I think part of what I get from this is I totally agree. There is a very distinct aesthetic in this municipality. And I think there's very limited situations where we should be allowing these types of fences. And there are, in my mind, there are other ways that we could probably, that the privacy could be achieved here. And in my mind, solid wood fence is not one.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Posthumous.
Yeah, I agree with that in the 216 change to wrought iron. The one thing concerns me is the 8-foot precedent. Other people can say, well, I want an 8-foot fence, not even that it's on the lands on an angle or whatever. They're saying, well, you gave them an 8-foot fence, I want one. And it's precedent setting.
Counselor Duval, do you have anything else to add? Because you were on the fence a little bit there. It's late, so I'll give you a joke.
Be interested to see some options of the style of fence we're talking. One fence is not the same as the other. I know it's to provide some sort of privacy, but there's still quite a wide variety of fences. Even 8 feet tall, they can look pretty nice, but we have no information on what would be there, where we're not asking to provide any, we're not about to provide any restrictions and any such information from the applicant.
No, yeah, I think we have to stick to what the request is this evening. And I support Counselor Imhoff in the fact that we live in a very unique community. in East St. Paul. And one of the things that I absolutely love is the more decorative landscaping and wrought iron fencing. I am not a fan of a wood fence. I know that they serve purposes for some reasons in yards and so forth, but and they can provide privacy, but I do feel that we're slowly moving away from what East St. Paul became, and I don't want to see St. Paul move to a whole bunch of wood fences with tall barriers and ruining the distinct look that we've all worked so hard to achieve in this community. So for this application tonight, I will not be supporting it. Is there anything further? Okay, then for resolution. Oh, we just need to vote. Great. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's defeated. Okay, so does someone want to get Councillor Horechko? Unless he's skipped out on us and ordered a pizza before he goes. Okay, moving right along to 6.5.
Resolved that council open the public hearing council for variation order 73/20. 455 Glenway Avenue.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Posthumus, seconded by Councillor Duval. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now open, and I'll pass the floor over to Mr. Planner.
Thank you, ma'am. This is variance application view 73/2023. The subject property is located at 455 Glenway Avenue. The applicant wishes to reduce front and both the side yard requirements and a cantilever to exceed the maximum length in the single family zone. This is the variance request table. As you can see, the applicant wishes to reduce the setback from 40 feet to 19.25 feet. Reduce the side yard setback from 5.2 to 5 on one side and 4 to the other side. And then increase the cantilever length from 10 feet to 10.2 feet. This is the location map. As you can see, the property fronts Glenway Avenue. This is the site plan provided by the applicant that marks the location of all the variances. So this is the side yard 4 feet, this is 5, this is 19.25, and this is the increased cantilever that is 10.2 feet. As per the letter of intent, the home was destroyed in fire and the existing foundation is being used for reconstruction. Regular planning notes that as per section 2.9 of the bylaw, it states that if the damage or destroyed extent is 50% or more, it should be rebuilt in conformity with the provisions of the current bylaw. We did not receive any objections on this proposal. If the council wishes to approve this application, we recommend 2 conditions. Number 1, this variance is limited to what is proposed in this application. Any changes in use, additions, and or replacement may require approval. Number 2, the applicant owner obtains all required permits from the River Planning District and the RM. Thank you. If the council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So I'll just, I think we've had this in the past where it comes forward, it was in the sense a loss without the foundation. The foundation was kept. And then the foundation is found to not meet our current bylaws, and therefore it comes forward for an application. Now, I'm just wondering, is there no way that these, in this particular situation, this can't be grandfathered and not cost the applicant monies coming forward?
So this, the statement in the bylaw is in line with the planning act legislature. So the province lays out the exact same wording under the planning act. You would have to change the planning act.
All right, it just seems, you know, it's unfortunate because obviously I don't think that there'll be a decision to remove a foundation, you know, they've already suffered a loss and now, you know, they have to put forward monies for a variation order. So I find that that something should accommodate these situations. So I don't have any further questions. I just wanted to ask that again. Does anyone else have any questions?
No, and we've had that before. We had a garage similar that.
Yes.
On the same garage pad, but they had to go through the whole process, which delays a lot of time. Although some insurance companies do cover the process, it's just a large timeline.
Yeah, I don't know that they would cover the process.
They did in that garage. I checked on it later. They did.
Oh.
Insurance covered the process.
And Councillor.
I think in this case, especially in this day and age, not having to or destroy it and use up other resources or whatever, when there's a perfectly good existing resource there, that foundation is solid and ready to be built on, it makes perfect sense to build on it.
Okay, so do we have the applicant?
Oh, I'm Rob Dillco. I'm Glenway Avenue. So today I'm just trying to build back the house, basically how it was. A little bit of changing. I want to make the garage a little bit bigger, so that's why the one side is 2 feet wider than the thing. But the front, every single house is 26 feet from the curb, so I don't know. I'm going to be 40 feet, and every single house on my street sits the exact same. You build it 40 feet back, you can't build a house. You build a 500 square foot box. Since
Do we have any questions? No, okay. Any questions? Thank you. And then we have Ken Osborne signed in support. Oh, you know what? He might have signed the wrong sheet because he's on Rebex, so. Ken is not here. Okay. There's no one in opposition, no one for information. Is anybody online? No one's online. So council will close the public hearing.
Resolved that council close the public hearing in council for variation order 73/2023 for 455 Glenway Avenue.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Horechko, seconded by Councillor Imhoff. All those in favor? That's carried. The public hearing is now closed. And for resolution.
Be resolved that variation order 73/2023 be approved subject to the following conditions. This variance is limited to what is proposed in this application. Any changes in use, additions, and or replacement may require a new variance approval. Applicant owner obtains required permits from the Red River Planning District and the municipality.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Duval, seconded by Councillor Posthumous. Any discussion?
I guess I jumped the gun on my discussion.
What's that?
I said, I guess I jumped the gun on my discussion.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, no discussion. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, moving on under bylaws, 7.1. Uh, 7.1, yes, for bylaws.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-11 be bylaw of the Highlands to establish the general reserve fund be given second.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Horechko, seconded by Councillor Posthumous. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. And for third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-11, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the general reserve fund, be given third reading. And be it further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
I have a mover, please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Goodell. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. 7.2 for second reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-12, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Parks and Recreation Reserve Fund, be given second reading.
I have a mover, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Posthumous. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried for third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-12, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Parks and Recreation Reserve Fund, be given third reading. Be it further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
I have a mover, please, Counselor Horechko, seconded by Counselor Duval. Any discussion? No. All those in favor? That's carried. 7.3.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-13, being a bylaw of the Arm of St. Paul to establish the Real Estate Reserve Fund, be given second.
Mover, please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Horechko. No discussion. All those in favor? That's carried for third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-13, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Real Estate Reserve Fund, be given third reading. Be further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
The mover, please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Posthumous. No discussion. All those in favor? That's carried. 7.4.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-14, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Sewer Reserve Fund, be given second reading.
Moved by Counselor Horechko, seconded by Counselor Duval. No discussion. Call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And for third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-14, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Sewer Reserve Fund, be given third reading. And be it further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
The mover, please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Posthumous. All those in favor? That's carried. 7.5.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-15, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Transportation Reserve Fund, be given second.
I have a mover, please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Duval. All those in favor? That's carried. And for third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-15, being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish the Transportation Reserve Fund, be given third reading. And be it further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
I have a mover, please, Counselor Posthumous, seconded by Counselor Horechko. No discussion. All those in favor? That's carried. 7.6.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-16, being a bylaw of the Arm of St. Paul to establish the Water Reserve Fund, be given second reading.
Moved by Counselor Horechko, seconded by Counselor Posthumous. All those in favor? That's carried. For third reading.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-16, being a bylaw of the Arm of St. Paul to establish the Water Reserve Fund, be given third reading. And be it further resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign a bylaw on behalf of the municipality.
A mover, please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Horechko. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. Moving on to 7.7.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-17 being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to establish a system to regulate the condition and maintenance of vacant residential and commercial buildings, and to establish a process to take title to vacant and derelict buildings be given first reading.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Postuma, seconded by Counselor Imhoff. Any discussion? No discussion? Oh, Counselor Posthumus.
I think it's time overdue. We need to upgrade it and do this. Something we've had quite a few calls on derelict buildings, and I was surprised though that we have that many in the RM, and we had not a proper way to deal with it. So I think this is going to help us along with these derelict buildings.
Okay, no further discussion. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. 7.8.
Be resolved that bylaw number 2023-18 being a bylaw of the Arm of East St. Paul to provide for implementation of the Provincial Offences Act be given first reading.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Horechko, seconded by Counselor Imhoff. Discussion? Okay. Oh, sorry, Counselor Duval.
One quick comment, this doesn't provide for enforcement of moving vehicles. Basically, we have that, we still don't. Including preference.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, it's just first reading. They'll come back for second and third. We can discuss it further if you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay. Call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Under policies, 8.1.
Be resolved that transfer station attendant policy JD 188 be approved as presented.
I have a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Horechko, seconded by Counselor Posthumus. I'll open the floor to discussion. Counselor Duval.
I read the job description and it seems like an awful lot of clerical work to be done at that site. Keeping track of absolutely everything. It's gonna have to be 2 people there.
I'm not sure if the Director of Infrastructure would like to chime in on this, but I would assume as the municipality grows that there will likely be a need for more for additional support at the transfer.
For the summer.
Certainly, I think we'll maintain current staffing levels, and if we do find that there's no overburden of duties, we'll look at expanding personnel at that point.
Just a question. I think that I brought it up in the past about the individual moving equipment and having that qualification. Now that this is upgraded, will we be looking at any wage increases? Or is this QP?
This is part of the QP.
Okay. Okay.
It's a unionized position.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have a mover, a seconder. I'll call for, oh, sorry, Counselor.
So, and this would also entail that once we open up our new building up there for accepting other whatever they are. I think we have a new for our building, possibly opening this summer, so this person be part of that also.
Yeah, the household hazardous waste.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so we may have summer students or summer employees that get 2 business extras.
There's potential for that during the busy summer months as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And we'll move under finances, 5.1.
Be resolved that the schedule of accounts dated July 18th, 2022, amounting to $8,810 be confirmed as.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Posthumus, second by Counselor Horechko. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And 9.2.
Be resolved that the schedule of accounts be since the June 13th, 2023 council meeting amounting to $767,165.46 be confirmed as.
Mover please, Counselor Imhoff, seconded by Counselor Posthumous. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's carried. And 9.3.
Be resolved that the net payroll and council indemnities for the RMV St. Paul from June 16th to July 18th, 2023, amounting to $244,885.39 be approved.
Moved by Counselor Hurechko, seconded by Counselor Imhoff. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? It's carried. And 9.4.
Resolved that the statements of revenues and expenditures for the period ending June 30th, 2023 be approved as presented.
I have a mover, please. Counselor Duval, seconded by Counselor Imhoff. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Under planning, 10.1.2.
Be resolved that subdivision S 23-3000 for 209 and 250 Fox Road Avenue be approved, subject to the following conditions. Applicant owner submits confirmation in writing from the CAO of the municipality that taxes on the land to be subdivided for the current year, if any arrears have been paid, or arrangements satisfactory to council have been made. Payments of any applicable development levies have been paid. Applicant owner submits confirmation from Manitoba Hydro that an easement agreement has been entered into with Manitoba Hydro with respect to existing and or future facilities associated with the subdivision, and a plan of easement as required by the Real Property Act has been provided. Registration of this agreement will be included as a condition of the final certificate of approval. Applicant owner submits confirmation from Shaw Communications Inc. that an easement agreement has been entered into with Shaw Communications Inc. with respect to existing and or future facilities associated with the subdivision.
Okay, so this was tabled. Did we have a mover and a seconder when we tabled it?
Was moved by Councillor Posthumous and seconded by Councillor Duval.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open the floor up for discussion. Councillor Duval.
Yes, this was as we can see on the screen, it's two properties that actually wanted to be split into 4 lots by the applicant, as I recall the story, but they were advised they couldn't do that. And it's to do with the moratorium, or did you want to address this instead?
I can briefly talk about what the application was. So they wanted to realign the property boundaries of 2 lots. So that portion of 209 was going to be consolidated with 215. The subdivision starts with 2 titles and ends with 2 titles. No new titles were going to get created. So this wasn't creating any additional lots. But because of the moratorium, they were advised to follow this path. But I believe the council wanted to take some time to figure out whether they can do a 3-lot split. And then table the decision and come back at a later date to decide.
And so do you know if the applicant wanted to do a 3-lot split opposed to a boundary lot line change?
When I met the applicant, they came in with an application for a boundary realignment.
Kara,
Yes, they would want to subdivide.
they would
I
want
don't
to,
know how many lots, but yeah, they would want to subdivide whatever they could achieve, right? The maximum
I
to achieve.
Councilor Duval?
Should I continue?
Sure, I thought you were done. I apologize.
Yeah, what the obvious advantage here for both parties, being the applicant and the municipality, is that that piece of property be split into 4 lots. 2 of them would be on Saddle Ridge Lane on the bend, and 2 of them would be on Fox Road. That would make sense, and I believe all 4 lots would meet the requirements of the bottom of the zoning bylaw. Now, yes, we have a moratorium, but it doesn't seem quite right that we use that moratorium as a reason to not allow this and have them do a boundary adjustment as proposed here. And then later on the moratorium is lifted, whenever that is, they have to do it all over again to realize the potential of this piece of property. So my position would be for this application, as it's stated here, we would decline it. With the expectation the applicant can come back with the more favorable arrangement of that piece of land.
Councilor Posthumous?
So my understanding is that they're changing the boundary and then they're making it all one. They're making all one title. So, or all one, or is it still 2 split? But they haven't done the subdivision part. No new lots. Okay, so with this boundary change, do they have to go to land titles and all that type of thing? So that's gonna cost them a lot of money. More money and more time. So wouldn't it be better just to come?
Right.
Like we have the moratorium, and we're looking at some other possibilities with it, or being allowed to possibly subdivide and not hook up right away. So if they came at a later date with that, it would cost, like, you'd have to start all over and do your subdivision and go to land titles again and split the lots up.
Yes, basically.
So you'd be doing this twice.
Yeah. And they would have to check off all those easement requirements at this stage and whatever the requirements would be at the next.
And then you start all over again with the new subdivision and the new land titles, so you pay land titles twice and all that.
So if the council wants to allow them to amend the application or amend this application, this would have to be recirculated to all the provincial agencies. And that would reset the timeline.
Oh.
So we can still amend the application tonight?
I mean,
We can grant them to amend the application.
if there was a resolution on board, then maybe, but that was taken off the agenda.
Correct.
So right now it would be a decision whether they approve it or not.
Okay, but so I'm a little confused because just because the moratorium, of course, we took something off the agenda tonight. It will come back to council. Can we not offer them to amend this in the interim? They would essentially both come back probably to, theirs is going to take longer than our item to come back to council because they're going to have to go back and survey is going to have to change the lines again, create the subdivision. So could we not grant them to amend because it's going to take them longer to come forward? I think council as a whole is moving in a direction to.
Just so you're aware, we spoke to the municipal lawyer about that. Because of the current resolution in place, I could read it, but they can't amend anything because there's nothing that can be done right now. As far as a subdivision application, You want me to read it? Or?
Well, Kara, I just wonder, what does amend mean? Right, it can mean a ton of things. It doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna amend to a subdivision, they're just gonna amend their application.
But you could allow them to amend it, but at this point, they can't subdivide any lots, so they could just adjust the boundary.
Right.
And it would have to be recirculated, and it would cost more advertising fees, so
Right.
I don't recommend that at this time.
But if in the near future they were able to do the subdivision, they would still have the opportunity to amend, which would be cheaper for them.
They can come back at a later date.
Yes, at a later date, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if there's a way that we can allow them to amend, I think that would be in their
Maybe
best.
we look at certain applications, they came back and amended the application, they just did the amendment.
Right.
But they get 2 years, right? If you approve this, they get 2 years to check all of those conditions.
Right. What is an amendment fee? How much is an amendment fee? $1,000.
So it needs to be re-advertised and so.
But the $1,000 is cheaper than going through land titles with legal and engineering and drainage plan. And all that would meet the DA, or you said there's no DA for this, but there would still be some steps that would be required for them to complete this application. And then they would have to move forward to a subdivision application. So essentially the $1,000 is the less expensive route.
Yeah.
For the applicant.
Yes, that would be for the applicant to determine if that's what they want.
Right, because we're just telling them that they can amend the agreement. And they have how much time to amend the agreement?
So if this is approved, it would be for 2 years, and they can change the application.
Has to be approved in order to be.
To be amended.
Right.
Okay, that answers that. Makes sense.
Has to be approved to amend it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
currently, when there's no application that River Funding can take an amendment before. Within the 2-year timeline, so for example, the Burton property was approved, so he had the option, the 2-year time frame to amend it. So as far as resolution right now, tell them they can amend it, but that would only mean a lot boundary adjustment to this. So there's 2 different.
Or if you want them to amend it right now, they can submit an application and you can recirculate everything if that's what you want. But again, you would have to address the moratorium issue in the current resolution. That's all.
Can't amend it until the moratorium is dealt with first.
Right. As per the orange advice, that needs to be addressed first.
But we can approve it tonight.
And then they get 2 years.
2 years. And it,
Because the application would be conditional.
Okay, and would they incur any cost before they amended?
Not if they start checking off those conditions.
Because they have.
Which
2 years
conditions?
with them.
The 3 conditions that will be.
Right,
So if they start to check those off, then they would have to pay for those easement requirements.
one of them's
they
tax.
have to pay for those
Right.
in advance of coming forward for an amendment. So it still costs.
No, they have 2 years to satisfy their conditions, so they don't have to start them. So I have people that get approval and they've sat on
They sat on the subdivision for 2 years before even starting it, and they asked for an extension of 1 year, so. They have 2 years to satisfy these, so they don't have to do anything with them at this point.
It's no extra cost.
Okay, but that would be the decision of the applicant. If they want to check off those conditions, then they can, as well.
Okay. My concern with approving it the way it stands tonight is that we have 2 lots, one very large lot. That is a back lot that should complete a subdivision. If the applicant does not amend it and it stays the way it's presented tonight, then we potentially are not closing a development and it could stay a derelict back property that would not complete a subdivision. So we're at a really bad spot with this application because, approving it could mean that it could stay the way it is and never go forward for a subdivision. Denying it means that it would come forward for another application. So in this situation, I'm a little bit torn as to which route to go because I would hate to approve the application as presented and then we essentially are not closing a new development.
So you can then, if it's approved, just satisfy the conditions, register it and be done.
Yes. And what is the fee structure? Can I ask that question, Suzanne, what they were charged for this application? No, I can't ask that out loud. Okay, I won't ask that out loud. Okay, so I have to sit here and think about this, so Councillor Posthumous.
I believe wholeheartedly that they're gonna want to subdivide it to get 2 or 3 lots off the back. They probably would have came with that if the moratorium was off. I don't want to see them charge more fees that are gonna cost more. I believe that if we pass it, they have the 2 years to change it and go to this and do a subdivision differently. So I think that's the best way. Otherwise, they're gonna start all over. Is that not correct? And you'd have to, if it gets denied, you have to go through the subdivision, everything all over.
But they essentially have to go through that process again regardless.
Yes, the amendment needs to happen.
It has to happen.
And everything.
Everything has to happen.
The costs are a lot less. It's just an amendment cost.
Half the cost.
Half the costs are less.
So just going over this one more time. If we approve this tonight, then it can be amended in the next 2 years.
Yes,
Moratorium gets changed
yes, 50 up,
at a cost of about $1,000.
yes.
So this is the least expensive way for the residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or so they can also leave it the way it is.
I don't see
But I don't see them doing that.
They're shaking their head. They're not.
Yeah, I can,
Can't ask.
No, we can't ask,
we can't ask them.
but they, I mean, that was their. I mean, I've been told that they would like.
It would be-
to subdivide,
Okay,
But
so,
nothing's guaranteed.
so another question would be to their advantage. To do it. Financially.
I mean, so you have to assume that 4 lots spec would be. If.
That's their-
Well, if they meet the
Right.
criteria,
There'll be other conditions. From the province already, so that would add on, obviously, yeah.
but it would be a financial viability for them, more profit if they're gonna.
It'd be less cost to do.
Less costly.
Also depends on what the resolution for comes out to be. There could be costs related to whatever the resolution is. So all those things that on.
I asked what the fee is for a subdivision.
I can.
Technically, like, we don't have to ask what their.
No, but I can ask in general. Yes, thank you. How much? Oh, I thought you said 20 grand. I was like, what? So it's $1,000 more. But provides security to the RM that it would be subdivided.
That's the total cost, is it? 2,000. That's
Plus
a
$300 for additional lots.
plus 300 additional.
So 2,400.
Oh, Councillor Janelle.
I kind of agree with the mayor, what she said a few minutes ago, that if we approve this, we're approving something that we don't want. But what's down the road, could be another council. We don't know what's gonna happen. There's something always dangerous about doing something like that. We know, all parties know what we want, what they want. We want 4 lots there, including the applicant. Shouldn't speak for them, but I'm pretty sure. But to approve something that we don't intend to do doesn't make sense to me. I know we were kicking around the cost this way, the cost that way, and it's all gets very confusing and convoluted, but fundamentally, you don't approve something that you don't want.
I can agree with that. So I'm just wondering, Councillor Hurechko, if it was denied tonight, they would restart their application. But would you be able to present to our PD board maybe in favor of some sort of
Reduced rate,
reduced rate credit?
you know, I mean. Yeah, I mean, we can, you know,
It's $1,000.
Present,
we're contemplating.
yeah, we can present that to RPD and maybe, you know, and guarantee it.
Yeah.
Always worth a shot.
Yeah, it's a difference of $1,000 that we'd be asking for.
Yeah. No.
Councillor Postumus?
Yes, actually, 2 meetings ago that did happen, I believe, that they did a reduced rate on something that St. Clements thought was too much, and they were kind of led the wrong way, so they did a reduction. So that could be possibly do that, and that would be the $1,000 difference. But we'd have to go to RPD with that.
Councillor Imhoff, do you have anything to add to our very confusing discussion?
I think it's been beaten up enough.
Okay. No opinion, okay. Okay. Boring. Okay, is council prepared to make a decision? Okay. So we'll just recap what we've been discussing is that there's an application before us that council, if we were just dealing with the application, which we should be, we would not be in support of the application. It's my opinion, Councillor Duval's opinion. I'm not sure how the rest of the council feels. And the reason being is that it could create 2 lots, 1 large lot, and it would potentially leave a large lot, back lot, that would not close development. And essentially when developments go in, we have existing communities, and we need to consider those existing communities when we're approving subdivisions and how they can be incorporated. And I think the last thing that a subdivision wants to see is that, you know, these backlots don't get developed, they remain derelict, or you know, they're a hole in the subdivision. So essentially council would like to see these backlots subdivided and developed. And unfortunately, this application came forward and not in a favorable request for council. So we're trying to determine how to deal with it in the best interest of the RM and of the applicant. And it's a little bit of a difficult one for us, because we know what we'd like to see, and we also need to ensure that somehow that happens. So we're just kind of torn. Does anybody want to add to that before we call for the question?
Let's get it done.
Okay, so I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so under administration is 10.2.1.
Whereas section 172(1) of the Municipal Act provides for funds for operational expenses during a fiscal year. And whereas it may be deemed necessary to utilize a line of credit in the 2024 fiscal year. Therefore, be it resolved that council authorize the use of the line of credit if needed at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce in the amount of $2 million for the and be it further resolved that council authorize the use of corporate credit cards at the CIBC, the credit limit of $80,000 for the 2024 fiscal year.
Madam CAO, I think I accidentally said that the last resolution was carried, but it was defeated.
Was defeated.
Yes, so I just wanted to say that. I think for resolution, for mover, please. Councilor Horechko, second by Councilor Posthumous. Any questions or discussion around this? Nope, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, that's carried. Under general, 10.3.1.
Be resolved that council approves the cost sharing agreement between the Island of St. Paul and the Manitoba Water Services Board respecting the regional water and wastewater system conceptual study. And be it resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the municipality. And be it further resolved that council allocates $40,000 from the sewer reserve fund for the study.
I have a mover, please. Councilor Imhoff, seconded by Councilor Duval. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor? That's carried. Under operations, 10.4.1.
Be resolved that council authorize the purchase of a 2023 Freightliner 5-ton truck with angle plow from Brant Tractor for the cost of $414,090 plus tax. And be it resolved that council approves the additional budget expenditure of $64,090 for the purchase. And be it further resolved that the public works manager be authorized to travel to Nisku, Alberta to inspect the vehicle with a travel allowance not exceeding $1,000.
I have a mover, please. Councilor Horechko, seconded by Councilor Posthumous. I'll open the floor up for discussion.
Joke.
Guessing it's the way it is, the trucks have gone up.
Does it come with a driver?
We also want to go probably see what we're getting.
Oh, that's
to
right.
ship it out.
But
Sorry, it's a
includes
used.
that.
Yeah.
No, it's new.
What's it?
It's a new vehicle.
It's brand new still, but
And it's
Do we
a
have to?
grant.
Yes.
And we don't trust that they're gonna deliver what we want. I'm just questioning.
I think it's, wise to get a look at the vehicle, make sure he meets specs, make sure there's no surprises. When contemplating the expenditure of that magnitude.
And it's, Brant is across Canada now, I think, but he won't bring it to Manitoba for us to see it, to then purchase it.
I think probably the cost of bringing the vehicle here. Probably would exceed $1,000.
When he has to ship it here, are we driving it back?
Just goes there. Making money on a lot of miles on the truck.
They have to ship it here, right? So I was just wondering if they would ship it here for us to see. It's like we're
purchased.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they could possibly give us that, ship it here for us to view it, but. I mean, I guess we could ask.
I guess there's some concern that, given the wait time on these vehicles, there's some concern that, window of opportunity is going to close, and there isn't a shortage of other prospective buyers out there. So, I don't know if you really have to take it off the lot for a week to find a buyer.
Other questions?
We need a new truck.
Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And so business arising from delegations, we didn't have any delegations tonight. We had correspondence for information. There was a lot of that. Does anybody have anything to know? Okay. And
Oris needs.
yeah, Oris.
Need to make a resolution to extend the meeting till 10:30.
We have 4 minutes to wrap up the meeting, otherwise we will require a resolution to stay beyond.
Oh, I need a resolution because we have to move in camera. I have something to present.
So we need to make a resolution to extend the meeting first.
Yes.
4:10.
Maybe we should change that so that we have a, we're released can stay till 10:30. 10 seems short when you have all these public hearings. A resolution to extend the meeting.
Be resolved that council extends the council meeting to 10.
I heard a tone.
Well,
I'm gonna move that resolution.
oh, you like that?
And second by Council President. All those in favor? That's carried. I'll resolution to move in camera.
Be resolved that council now move in camera as per section 152(3) of the Municipal Act to discuss business development matters, and be it further resolved that all matters discussed while in camera to remain confidential as per section E3(1)(d) of the Municipal Act.
I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Imhoff. All those in favor? Carried, and we will now move in camera.
Stop this phone. Don't you? I didn't hear that. Phone calls about that plow truck.
Oh,
I'm curious about that.
and
We're probably overpaying.
Council is now moving out of in camera. Can we have the resolution?
Be resolved that council now moves out of camera and resumes the regular.
I have a mover, please. Councillor Posthumous, second by Councillor Duval. All those in favor? Carried, and now the resolution to
Be resolved that the meeting be adjourned, the time being 10:28 p.m.
moved by Councillor Imhoff, seconded by Councillor Horechko. Put your hand up. All those in favor? That's carried.
Okay. It's a guy.